Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new episode of Bets and Banter. And this week on the show, we are going over UFC Des Moines. It is going down in Iowa, wrestling country, USA. We are going to be talking about a lot of great fights this week, but most importantly, we've got the bantamweight headliner. It's going down with Cory Sandhagen, looking to reestablish himself as a bantamweight contender, and he's taking on the former flyweight champion, Deiveson, Figueiredo. And it should be a great fight in that main event. We've got plenty of great action to discuss. And this week on the show, not only do we have a great guest, we have a power panel assembled once again. Our guy is feeling better. He was not well last week. We had to make do without, but he's back in the building, coming off a win, coming off a successful week. Our guy, Wizz MMA, back in the building. How are you, my brother?
My guy, it's good to be back. Last week we were MIA, a little sick, had to deal with a couple of things, and then also just working through camp. Glad to be back, though. That's 6 straight weeks of profit. I just need to ask, what else do you want? We're positive 22.74 units in that span, so I will brag about it once, but the grind never stops. Another weekend, and we have a great PFL event tomorrow, but more importantly, we have a great UFC Des Moines this Saturday, and I'm coming in with some heat, so let's go.
I absolutely love it, brother. You've been on a hot streak. I've been on a rough run the last couple of events. I'm not going to front, right? I think it's been 2 or 3 losing events in a row, still at a 14% ROI on the year. So knock on wood, keeping it selective spots. It means that when we do well, we try and maximize our wins. But when we take a loss, we try not to put our whole bankroll in the center each and every time out. So thankfully, we've been getting closing line value. We've been doing a lot of the fundamentals right. But this week, it's about winning. We're here for blood. We're in fucking Wrestletown, USA. No excuses, baby. Let's get this money. And how are we going to do it? Let's get the shekels with the Jewish better. Nobody do it better. Welcome back to the panel, my brother.
Oy vey, oy vey, oy vey. What's going on, my guys? And yeah, I should have known last week, fucking playing Gage Young. You don't fade Wizz MMA. Not in the bets and not in the coaching. You just can't do it. Congratulations on the win, my guy. Well deserved. And I'm excited to break down some fights with both of y'all.
Absolutely. It was a hell of a great week last week at UFC Kansas City, but the bookie's never going to pay us for the work we did last week. It's on to this week. We've got first up, gentlemen, Julianna Miller making her return. It's been nearly 2 years, maybe a little over 2 years. I'd have to refer back to my notes, but certainly been a long time since we've seen Julianna Miller inside the octagon, multiple surgeries that she had to deal with trying to get right with her health, but she's been doing some competitive grappling matches, getting back into the feel of competition, and now she's looking to get back into the deep end in the UFC. So what do you guys think about this flyweight matchup? First, we'll kick it off with Brother Wizz.
Yeah, so this is, I think, your typical WMMA fight where you have a somewhat clash of styles where Julianna Miller is going to want to take this fight to the ground as soon as possible. And Petrovic, I'm not going to say she's like a surefire striker here and where she wants to stay on the feet, but she's definitely the much more skilled striker here. Both ladies really measure up well. Petrovic is going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, though, so that will serve her well against someone like Julianna Miller, who does not have the greatest striking defense. Basically, anything you throw at Julianna Miller, with all due respect, will land unless she's just going backwards. And even then, once you get her up against the cage, it's you can just unload on her, which is a really bad look. She doesn't really tend to cover up in the smartest ways. So I do think Petrovic can land the more effective strikes. And lately, that's what the judges have been scoring. If she gets into some stalling positions on the ground and where she doesn't really do much, I don't think she will get awarded enough in terms of winning the rounds. And then also, she is opportunistic with the submissions, I will admit, but we haven't really seen her against the greatest level of competition either, and she still isn't showing us anything. So for me, I mean, by no means am I saying Petrovic is a lock, but I will say that I predict her to win the fight. And then I think she wins it by 3rd round knockout here. Just Julianna Miller over the 3 rounds. You can't trust that chin. You can't trust the striking defense. And I think it will get touched at some point. So, yeah, I think Petrovic wins this one, but not the strongest take in the world. I won't be touching anything on this fight.
Understood. It is certainly on the lower end of the, quality, right, that we're producing. I think there's only 6 fights professionally on the side of Julianna Miller. She's obviously got a background in grappling and a lot of high-level experience there, but ultimately, time in the cage has been suffering, especially with a result of these injuries lately. Has been keeping her from active competition. My guy, Jewish Better, how do you feel about this matchup, my man? Low-level violence has been, coming through a little bit lately, right? We talked about a little bit on the phone last week, maybe some potential for violence in Jocelyn Edwards, Chelsea Chandler, a little bit of a clash of styles. Plus 340, that fight was to end inside the distance. You look at this one, plus 125 or plus 150, I think, right? Across the board, a little bit of different prices, but way shorter. And this is a 125-pound bout as opposed to 135. What do you make of this fight? And do you think we're going to see the judges' scorecards? Do you think this one gets done inside the distance?
Hey, let's not forget the week before when my girl Nora Coronole came through for the submission versus Haley Cowan. Bang. But Petrovic's round 3 KO is kind of crazy, man. Plus 3,300. If that's like the way you're seeing the fight, right? Not really saying it.
That was what Wiz was saying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you got to stab it, right? And like, I totally could see it. I've seen a few people taking the sub for Petrovic. So, like, that's one thing I disagree with. Like, the equity on that line, I think she's more likely to get a KO. I know personally when it's WMMA, we don't see that. But like you said, she could just be landing jabs. And I don't know where Miller's at in her career with the surgeries. She's coming off a bad knockout loss. She absorbs a lot of strikes per minute on the feet. I think she could get kicked in the head here as well. And just, like I said, I don't like the way she gets hit on the feet. She doesn't, she's usually pretty durable, though, and Luana Santos has some pop in her, and I believe she did get injured during that fight, so that's something that we could fall back on. Veronica Hardy, solid UFC fighter. She had multiple armbar attempts in that fight. I like that she was going for it. Hardy never looked to square off, but Miller wasn't able to secure the submission there. Petrovic on the other side, I wind up seeing her in these grappling exchanges where she's just going for heel hooks and making low IQ mistakes in the grappling. And I think if you wind up doing that against a girl like Julianna Miller, who's probably going to be pressuring forward, and I think this fight winds up in the clinch at some point. Because Miller's striking, it's trash, bro, but I think it's sufficeable here. Like, she just throws absolute winging bombs, and I think Petrovic is going to have to cover up. It's not like Petrovic is some world beater. She's hittable. She's not like fucking some power Ngannou striker, right? Especially early. So I think as the fight goes on, the striking could be exposed, but I think she'll wind up in the clinch somehow. And like I said, if Petrovic winds up on top, I don't necessarily think she's 100% safe here because I don't like 10th Planet style necessarily for MMA, but I think she's going to be super flexible. So she can hit those arm bars where most girls can't. And if it's in the open mat, I just see like her having submission upside here. So the way I look to play it is probably Julianna Miller by sub or maybe Petrovic by KO.
I don't mind either of those looks. There's a lot that stood out to me about this fight when I was looking into it on the top line. Number one, you got to almost wait and see a little bit with Julianna Miller where her athleticism looks like. I'll just tell you guys personally, like, dealing with shoulder injuries has been a major burden in my life. And I've never dealt with like a serious, like major surgery, something like that. I've just dealt with routine stress injuries from doing a lot of guillotines, from doing a lot of front headlocks when I was a wrestler. And my shoulders are kind of jacked up. The only like serious injury I ever had was an inflamed AC joint, and my shoulders give me problems every single day. So to have a major surgery and then come back to fighting, it's going to be tough, I imagine. And it does make me a little bit skeptical of how her striking is going to look and maybe what those phases are going to be. But here's the things that stood out about the Ivana Petrovic side that are major red flags for me. Number one, this is a WMMA fight, and we have a woman that is just 1-2 in fights that go to decision. Like, that's kind of alarming, right? For a UFC level fighter, she's 6-0 in fights that end inside the distance, but she's not fighting the highest level girls either. In the UFC, she fought 3 ladies. She's given up a takedown to each and every one of them. So I don't think her takedown defense is very good. Her losses, Carolina, 6-3 in the UFC. Horth, 2-2 in the UFC. Those aren't bad, but the win is over Na Liang, who never won, a single fight in the UFC. So is she UFC level? I mean, I guess by proxy, she's having close fights with Jamie Lynn Horth, who's 500 in the UFC and maybe got here a little bit too late and kind of looks like a different version of herself from LFA. So I think that when I look at this fight, man, I have more questions than answers, and it's a pretty big money line price. I'm not impressed by Petrovic on the ground, frankly. Like watching her decision making, I think it's bad. When you look at Julianna Miller, major red flags on her side, right? The striking defense, some of the worst you'll ever see, both statistically and visually, right? It doesn't look good, and on paper, it's really bad. But additionally, when you look at how she goes out there to fight, she takes a lot of risks. She's a very aggressive fighter, so she's going to go out there, put herself out there more often than not, put herself in the fire. So I think that kind of trends towards a fight that's probably not going to go. But on the other side of things, like I've seen Petrovic end up on bottom. I've seen her end up in horrible positions. I've seen her lucky to kind of survive some of these rounds as they're getting dicey. And I just think that if Miller's in the top position, she could definitely change the course of the fight. So I'm looking at this as like the ways I would look to play this. Miller money line, if I was to get to a money line side, the fight not to go the distance as a plus money prop, where I feel like I'm covering some of the equity on both these fighters. And then I think there's some big numbers on the specific props. I'm going to wait for the whole domestic market to matriculate before I give my full thoughts on that. But basically just think that there's some really big numbers out there. And we've seen already, the ways that these win conditions can manifest for these women, especially at a low level, right? It doesn't always take a great sophistication. You end up in one or two bad positions. Ask Ailey Cowan, right? Ended up in a bad position, with Nora Cornole, not known for her grappling. Believe she's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right? Shit can go sideways when you start getting hurt out there. And when you don't have good defense, you can get hurt. So for me, I just think there's some violence potential for this first fight of the night. We can move along, gentlemen, to the second fight of the night. I can tell you there's definitely violence potential here, fellas. We got Thomas Petersen and Dante Mays. I'll start us off on this fight. You look back at Thomas Petersen when he's fighting somebody that can't wrestle very well, and they're not very committed to winning. He could definitely take him down, beat him up, mug him, kind of do what he needs to win fights. You've seen that from him in the LFA. You've seen that from him on the Contender Series against Chandler Cole. I shouted out the submission prop there, 11-1. He was able to cash in for us. I believe it was his first career submission. But the reason that I was bullish on the prop was because he had an opponent that's willing to quit, in my humble opinion, no disrespect. And then he has also attempts on top. How do you submit somebody? You got to try submissions, right? Julianna Miller, she's attempting 1.8 per 15 minutes. You're going to give herself a chance when you do that. A guy like Thomas Petersen, he gets to the top position. He's trying to grab a hold of your arms. He's trying to manipulate them. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, right? It's pretty low-level shit, I'll be frank. Like, it's not going to work against the best guys, that's for sure. But when he gets these guys to the ground, very intentional about passing the good positions, getting on his work with his offense. And I think he even got one takedown on Gaziv, if my memory serves. It was probably really brief. He got finished brutally in that fight. His striking defense isn't up to par. And that's where this could all go wrong for him. But I feel like if he's getting takedowns, I have not seen enough enthusiasm, will to compete from Dante Mays in his recent iteration to trust this guy with my money. Like, frankly, I've always thought he sucks. No disrespect. I felt like he was a guy who's a training partner, a guy who gets some respect by proxy. Knockout over Andrei Arlovsky, tip of the cap to you, sir. I mean, hats off, right? A lot of good fighters couldn't do that. So he's got power. He's got some ability to strike. I just think when you make this guy wrestle and grapple, he looks bad. He makes horrible decisions. He's willing to wilt and quit. We've seen it against, what's that guy's name? The big Brazilian kid, Nascimento, right? Takes him down. I think it was a rear naked choke. Cyril Gahn tapped him with a move that doesn't exist. Straight ankle lock that only works on guys that already wanted to go home before you sat back for it. For me, not a real high level attempt. And then in his most recent fight, I had actually written up Walter Walker by submission. I thought round 2 or 3, I thought he's going to give it the old college try. And instead, man, it's like you take this fight to the ground. And I just feel like he looks like a fish out of water, a guy who's uncomfortable and doesn't want to be there. And I just don't know what he's really bringing to the cage at this point. So for me, I'm team never Dante Mays. The Hamdi Abdelwahab fight, if you just want to go back and see what this guy could do to you, he's attempting takedowns against an Olympic level wrestler and flat backing himself in the middle of the octagon. You just can't make it up, right? If you had game planned for that fight 100 times, I don't think one of the things that you would have mentioned to him is, hey man, go for a deep stepping inside trip and just flat back yourself right in the middle of the cage. So I don't trust his decision-making. I don't trust his process. I think Mays KO, that's the way I'd look to target him. Fight not to go the distance. That's my gut instinct here. You've got Petersen coming back very quickly off getting knocked out by Gaziv. But if he gets to the top position, I feel like it should be pretty elementary. I'm going to tell you the truth. I think the crowd's going to be going, bananas for Thomas Petersen, all-American type of dude, just has that vibe, that ethos, seems like a decent, hardworking guy. And Dontel Mays on the other side kind of just seems like a guy who's not really as serious about fighting as he once was. So for me, I think Thomas Petersen wins this fight, but am I trusting a guy who got knocked out 2 months ago at minus 250, who's got zero striking defense? I'm not doing that. Wiz, how do you feel about this one, brother?
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself, a guy like Dontel Mays, where we just haven't really seen him go out there and show us the willingness to fight, the willingness to continue to push through fatigue at times. And then whenever he gets flattened on the bottom, he just looks like a fish out of water. So the grappling is definitely not there. And Thomas Petersen, in his regional tape, we've seen him take guys down and land some ground and pound effectively. Now, he's not the most explosive guy when it comes to the takedowns. And what worries me in this spot specifically is the size advantage that Mays is going to have, because it's 5 inches of height is no joke, especially at heavyweight, along with about 7 inches of reach. It's gonna be tough for Petersen to get into the pocket, but the one reason I favor Petersen here is just the overall speed of Mays. Mays is very slow and ploddy in his movement, which is going to allow Petersen to time when to enter in on his legs. Because once he enters in on a leg and he has a deep single leg there, he should be able to land a takedown on Mays. Because overall, when you look at Mays's tape in terms of like balance, and when he's getting taken down or when he's getting shot on, he tends to just fall over and doesn't have the proper technique in terms of defending the takedown, grabbing underhooks, whatever it is. So if this fight stays on the feet, I think it's a coin flip, to be honest. The only place where I would say Thomas Petersen can look like a minus 250 favorite is on the mat, and I think we've kind of acknowledged that. So I'm going to stay away from this one. I do think violence angle is probably the only way to go for. But at the same time, I could see how this could be a 15-minute slugfest where both guys are gassed out and are just throwing pitter-patter punches. So for me, it's a stay away, but I do think Petersen gets a ground and pound TKO late.
All right, there you have it. So our guy Wiz thinks it's going to be ground and pound. I think it might be a submission for Thomas Jefferson Petersen. What do you think about this one? The Jewish bettor.
Yeah, it might not. It might take 100 UFC fighters to beat a gorilla, but it'll only take one UFC fighter to beat a Lord Quang. My man Thomas Petersen, he's gonna get the takedowns here, unless he gets knocked out on the feet, which is why I could see the violence. I think he's gonna be able to finish Dontel Mays on the mat. So this is kind of binary for me, unless Petersen just gets him to the mat and somehow can't finish him, which I really don't see. Because Dontel Mays is pretty atrocious down there. And I think Petersen probably knows what's on his hands here. Coming off a bad knockout loss, I think he's going to want to get this one to the ground quick. And I think he's going to want to get that one back. And whether it comes via the elbows from the crucifix or he gets the mount and just rains some punches on him, I could even see him running through that straight armbar series. And, maybe even tapping him with one of those 3 submissions, depending on what Quang gives him. Because I think if he just gets a hold of his arm, this guy might just give up. He'll give you 1 bump, 2 bump, but how many times is he going to get taken down? And actually, he might fight off the first takedown, but after a while, he's going to be breathing heavy. He's not comfortable in the grappling, and I think that he's probably going to get finished on the mat here by Petersen in later rounds.
Yeah, a few data points that support that. 57% career takedown defense rate for Dontel Mays, just 2-5 in his last 7 fights. That's 2-4 with 1 no contest, but the no contest was a fight that he lost. It was overturned for steroids for Nascimento. And then his wins in the UFC, 44-year-old Arlovsky, Martinez, Parisian, and Machado. Those last 3 guys, a combined 2-11 in the UFC. So overall, he doesn't really have any good wins to speak of. And Thomas Petersen, he was competing close with Waldo Cortez Acosta in LFA and then kind of just got beat up a little bit down the stretch. Waldo's now 6-1 in the UFC. So this guy's been fighting pretty solid guys when he loses. Jamal Pogues, a guy that beat him, he then got a bunch of work in with him after. A guy who's open to learning more from his opponents, trying to get better each and every time out and staying active. So for me, I think the trend line is better on Thomas Petersen, and I don't like what I've seen from Dontel Mays. So give me Petersen to get the job done. All right, fellas. Next up, we've got Gaston Bolanos taking on Quang Bang Lee, and we'll start us off with the Jew. How do you feel about this one, brother?
Thanks, my guy. I appreciate it, bro, because I love this fight, bro. I think Gaston Bolanos, for what he came into the UFC with, he's 2-1 now. Pretty solid record, but let's just take a look at his loss first. Let's start like good news, bad news. Let's start with the bad news first. Is he fought Marcus McGee, solid fighter, right? But let's just look at what happened in that fight. My man Gaston Bolanos got absolutely clowned. He was biting on every feint. He was in there with this, big athletic black dude. I'll just say it, and he was not very happy with it. And he wound up getting put out bad in that spot. Now, coming into the UFC, he had a win against. Let me go back and look just to make sure I'm not screwing up my memory here. Aaron Phillips, that guy's trash. That guy's terrible. So that win tells me nothing whatsoever. I went back and watched that fight. Phillips had some grappling success. He had his moments there, and even was threatening submissions at certain points. And yeah, he's known for like his BJJ, but he usually would strike in a lot of his fights, and he couldn't sustain the wrestling. Wound up, kind of falling off a cliff in that fight. Just like he's not even in the UFC anymore. So all good, bro. He was just telling him I used to eat on the podcast all the time. Yeah, gets absolutely clowned by Marcus McGee and finished. There's no knockdown in the Cortavius Romeus fight, but I watched it, and he absolutely got hurt in that fight. Did a face plant in round 1. Go back and watch it because it was really bad. And I am really concerned about his chin. That's not something I've heard a lot of people say this week, but obviously Quang Lee also got knocked out in his last fight, so that's something we may have to worry about. But yeah, I think the thing here is the grappling for Quang Lee. I think he can compete on the feet. Is he the better striker? I'm not necessarily willing to say, but I think he could have his moments. I think he could hurt Gaston. I don't think Gaston's as good of a striker as people make him up to be in MMA. He's got an 8-4 record. He can land low kicks here, but I think Quang Lee ultimately could get him on the ground, where I do not like his ground game. Cortavius Romeus was bullying him, absolutely tossing him around, picking this guy up, and he would take his back and just fall off, just like Cortavius Romeus does, wind up on his back. From what I see in Quang Lee's game, I don't think he's going to do that. I watched a couple of his fights. One where he got a knockout against this like kind of Thai-looking guy. I don't remember the guy's name, but he looked really crisp in that spot, was able to defend all the incoming strikes, got the knockout win there. Chris Gutierrez fight, tough call. I believe that was on short notice too, versus a solid UFC veteran. No skin off your cap, my man. Like, probably gets beat by Gaston Bolanos, probably getting beat by Chris Gutierrez too. So, at the end of the day, I think Quang Lee's pretty good. I've watched fights of him where he could take the back. He's trying to trap hands. He's doing high-level hand fighting techniques. I like the people that he's training with. I like the gym that he's training with. And ultimately, I just think he's going to get the win here. The one thing I do like about Bolanos is, I like I said, I think he can land the low kicks here. I do think he's the better technical striker on paper. But at a chalk price, both these guys are a little bit too similar to me to be given any chalk on Gaston Bolanos here. Give me Quang. I already bet 2 units on him.
There you have it. An underdog click for our guy, the Jewish bettor. How do you see this one going down, Wizz MMA?
Yeah, here's the thing. This fight's very close. When you look at it on paper, the matchup is very even, just dependent on where the fight goes. Obviously, Gaston is, in my opinion, the far much better striker here. He's going to have the low kicks at his advantage, and I think he's just a lot faster than Quang personally. The one thing about Quang that I do not like in the striking specifically is after he throws combinations, he doesn't really exit with his hands up to his chin, which is a little bit of a concern against someone who's a little bit on the faster side with Gaston. And I think Gaston has had, not the greatest run in the UFC, but losing to Marcus McGee, I'm not going to really give him any fault for, because Marcus McGee looks to be the goods at the moment. And then Cortavius Romeus, coming off the Contender series, was touted to be, a super athlete that, should be able to take Gaston down at will. And we kind of saw what happened there. So I think his takedown defense is improving here. Now, not to say that Quang can't take him down, because if he does and establishes control, this could just, in hindsight, look like a line flip situation where Quang should have been the favorite and Gaston should have been the underdog. But if he doesn't get it to the ground, I do think Gaston, for lack of better terms, he may style on Quang Lee on the feet. I like his straight shots, and every single movement that Gaston has in the cage, it's calculated. It's not he's not really throwing out shots that are empty, and he's leaving the pocket well. He's exiting out of these combos with his hands up, and I think I've been a little bit impressed with his overall striking over the past few fights. All that to say, another fight that I would not really feel confident laying a chalk on Gaston Bolanos. Hell no. But more importantly, I don't think I would be comfortable with a dog shot on Quang Lee either. So this is a complete pass for me. I think the fight is a coin flip at best. I guess in that case, you, by theory, should take Quang Lee. But for me, it's just not my style. So I'm going to pass. But should be a really good fight. I think this is a sneaky fight.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit more on the JB side of this one, my brother. I don't think Gaston Bolanos is unimpressive in the striking, right? Like, I definitely think that's the best part of his game. I think the Romeus fight shows he's dangerous in a couple different positions, right? Like, even when he's defending the takedowns, I think what's good about his game, he'll still look to do offense, right? He kind of busted up Romeus in the grappling a couple of times with some elbows, some well-placed, well-timed shots. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that, right? Especially when you go to a decision, somebody having blood on their face, somebody wearing some damage, leaking. Those things are huge, right? It can honestly change the complexion of a fight. Jessica Eye, in my opinion, clearly outboxed Jennifer Maia one time, but she was bleeding from like the first 30 seconds after a head clash, lost the fight on the cards, right? It's kind of the way it goes sometimes. So I think when you look at what Gaston did in that fight, busted up his face, did a lot right. But I did think JB was right. He got hurt badly in the first round of that one. I do think Romeus is an explosive hitter. I don't think he's a bad fighter. But there's an expression I use sometimes, which is, and I want to say he's a young enough guy that this could just be a temporary analysis, right? He could change this. But I think right now he's less than the sum of his parts. I think he's got half decent jiu-jitsu offense. I think his scrambling and his defense isn't there. I think his wrestling is all right, but he uses all muscle, so then he can't sustain it even for the course of 5 minutes or for a round, right? I think he gasses himself in wrestling exchanges in like 2 minutes and then lets guys reverse him and do things when he's starting to get tired and feeling sorry for himself. And I think on the feet, he's devastating, right? But defensively, he's just a complete void. So in all these places, he's got great offense and very limited defense. And I kind of think that's what we've seen has been exploited so far in his UFC run, where guys are just able to land too many places and have too much success against him, right? He's got good offense, and if you don't have your, confidence to go out there and attempt offense, he's going to go let you know what time it is. But if you bring your offense and your skills to bear, you can win the fight. And in that particular spot, I wrote it up. I believe Bolanos was the underdog going into that spot because he was coming off a devastating loss. And I wrote it up like it was a 50-50, right? Like either guy could win this fight. And I felt like it was either going to be Romeus gets the sub or, Gaston gets a KO, or it's going to be a very close decision. And ultimately, I kind of thought that's what we saw, right? Bolanos, he did more work. He definitely did more damage. He deserved the nod. But did I come away thinking like Bolanos is really good? No, I came away thinking Romeus is not who I thought he was. And, I picked Chang Lee in his next fight because of that, right? I was like, this guy is going to go out there and attempt more offense, more willing to do it for the course of the full 15 minutes. And that's going to be a problem for him. So Bolanos, I felt like, was bailed out by the fact Romeus can't fill those gaps, right? Marcus McGee gave him so much to think about. I honestly think it was mental overload. Like when you're a striker and you're very good at striking, and now I've got you thinking about what if I grab a hold of your leg? We've seen a lot of guys turn into very average strikers because they're not thinking clearly about what's happening. They're reaching down for shots that aren't there. And I kind of feel like Quang Lee, he showed against Chris Gutierrez, he's willing to attempt a bunch of takedowns, whether he gets them or not, right? I think he went for 11, and he hasn't been taken down yet in the UFC. So he's 3-0 to the takedown so far. He's gotten 4 minutes of control against a guy who's like fringe top 15, against a guy who's 10 wins in the UFC. I feel like that's actually more impressive to me than what I've seen from Bolanos in terms of MMA. Because like Bolanos, he's got some decent skills, but like, bro, his wrestling and grappling looked shit against Romeus. That's the God's honest truth, in my humble opinion. Like, he's getting picked up, thrown, turbo slammed into the ground. Like, Romeus is taking his back at free will a couple times. He's going for arm bars over the top for reasons I simply can't possibly understand. But if he had just elected to go 2 arms underneath, 2 legs in as hooks, is Bolanos getting out? Like, I don't think so, honestly. So for me, I think this is like an IQ test for Quang Bang Lee. Like, if he doesn't come out in this fight shooting takedowns, like, it was never going to work out for him in the UFC. But he comes from the academy in Minnesota. Those guys know how to wrestle, man. Like Castaneda, he knows how to wrestle. And I feel like Quang kind of showed in his last 2 fights, like, he's going to mix it up. He's going to try. And I don't trust Gaston to defend all the takedowns. So for me, I feel like Quang could get him tired. I feel like he's got some power in his hands. He could, kind of do what Romeus did and just land one that kind of gets him off his equilibrium and his game. Because, dude, I did think, like, there was a little bit more time in that first round and Romeus stopped going for arm bars over the top. He could have put him away, man. He literally went face down at one point. Like, he had no balance left. And then I felt like Romeus was so tired at the end of that first round that it gave Bolanos like a renewed sense of confidence. He was like, oh, thank God, this guy's exhausted. Like, I could do this still. And I just don't know that Quang Bang Lee is going to give it to him, right? I think he's going to go out there and fight hard and compete. So could he get clipped? I think that's absolutely the biggest liability for him here. But I do think Quang Lee is a live underdog, and certainly considering clicking that side this week. All right, next up, fellas. I like to call this the unstoppable force meets the movable object, right? You have Gillian Robertson, I think 9 times out in a row in the UFC. She's getting at least 1 takedown, right? She knows how to go out there and get to her game plan. Marina Rodriguez, I think her last 9 UFC fights, she's given up at least 1 takedown to every opponent. It's just like clockwork. Somebody's getting one, right? You're getting on top for the first round, getting some work done. And for me, if you're like a guarantee to give up a takedown to Gillian Robertson, that's a really horrible matchup for you. Much younger fighter. I don't think her striking is anything to write home about, but I also think she has no illusions about what she's doing on the feet. She tries to kick the body, she tries to kick the leg, and she tries to grab a hold of you, bring you to the ground. And I think she's very effective on top. I think she's a very savvy ground player with not only good submissions, but good advancing of positions, good ground and pound, good fundamentals, hard to buck off. And I just don't trust Marina Rodriguez at all in a matchup like this because I never trust her. I've never bet on this woman one time. The fight that she made me pay, Amanda Hebos, hats off to her, right? She did her job. She was like a plus 300 underdog. Amanda Hebos, we now know her chin is her biggest liability, was before she got to the UFC, still is. When she cuts to 115, her grappling sensational, her chin just doesn't hold up. At 125, the chin holds up, the grappling isn't as effective, she's not as strong, she's a tweener. So when I look at that fight, I say, it showed me the same thing, which is first round, she's getting taken down, she's getting audited from the bottom position, and then she knocks her out. Hats off to her. At 38 years of age, man, her birthday just came. God bless. Happy birthday. I hope she's doing well. I don't trust her at all, man. I don't trust her to not get taken down. I don't trust her physicality. I don't trust her ground game. And I don't think she's going to get submitted here at a super high clip, but I think she's going to get taken down and beat the hell up. So for me, that's enough to pick Gillian Robertson. And I think Trap Lord in the chat, Gillian KO 2-3, elbows from the mount. Yeah, I'll be there again. I've kind of been on those angles recently for Gillian, and even the fights that she didn't stop, I feel like she was very close to stopping. She beat the shit out of those women as well. So yeah, I mean, Gillian Robertson, 2-3 decision. That's the way I see this one going down. Wiz, how about you, my brother?
Copy paste. Here's the thing: we know the weakness in Marina's game, and it is the takedown defense. We know the strength in Gillian's game. It's the takedowns and the grappling. I think it's just a very binary fight where I just do not think that Marina is going to be able to stop takedowns because Gillian's relentless, and if she gets 1 takedown, that is the round. I'm not even going to go to say that there is an opportunity for Marina to get up. Obviously there is, but knowing what we know based on the film, Marina is what I would like to call a finished product at 38, whereas Gillian is improving as she goes. She's about to turn 30. Her birthday's in about 2 weeks. And yeah, I think that Gillian's going to be able to land the takedowns. Maybe it'll be a little bit more difficult early on in the first when they're fresh, but as the fight wears on, she will be able to time those entries. And I don't think Marina gets up a single time. Gillian's a little bit too savvy for Marina on the ground. And whether it's a submission, whether it's a ground and pound TKO, I think she does get Marina out of there at some point, just due to frustration, to be honest. I think Marina has kind of accepted that she is just a striker. And at one point, she was one of the best fighters in the division. And since then, hasn't really looked too hot. When fighters just refuse to improve at their weakest point, this is what tends to happen in their career. They stall and they slowly start to fall from the rankings and fall from the guard, and people forget about them. That's just what it is. So for me, I think Gillian is I'm not going to say lock. I will refuse myself from saying lock. But I think she's as close to it as it gets. So yeah, I think Gillian wins this fight pretty handily, whether it's decision, KO, or submission. But I do think it's inside the distance.
There you have it. A very impressive 9-2 record for Gillian Robertson in fights that end inside the distance. And I tried to bring up some of the takedown data points. Conceded 20 takedowns in her last 11 UFC fights, 1+ in every fight since December of 2019. Just abysmal numbers for Marina Rodriguez. How do you see this one going down, my friend Jewish Better?
Yeah, I fucking love Marina Rodriguez. Like you said, this girl at one point, like, she kind of got played. It's like the wrestler that didn't get the push when they showed up, right? And I kind of feel bad for her. Remember, she came into the UFC. Liam bought it up, the win against Maria Oliveira, and that's hilarious because she just like kind of made her quit, bro. Like she's like, nah, I'm good. I don't not want to be on the feet here. This girl's way better than me. Yeah, I'm out. Like, adios, amigos. And she's had a good UFC career since. She got, outed by Cynthia Calvillo, something I want people to remember. And I don't think it's gotten much better since. The recent losses versus Yan Xiaonan, getting taken down by Yan Xiaonan, I think is kind of an indictment of Marina's grappling. Not that Yan Xiaonan can't take you down, right? Because she was able to take Wei Li down. So it's not the worst look in the world, but like Liam had stated, she's been taken down in virtually every UFC fight. Literally, I think every UFC fight, except
every fight since 2019.
Fight. That's insanity, bro. And she's been put in a lot of submissions. She's just never really, gotten tapped. But she has been KO'd before, so I understand that look. I was watching her last fight, right? And I think she's fallen off quite a bit. The fight was close, but I'll just say something. Lucinda, man, she had her in bad positions in round 2. And she just refused to advance position, refused to do damage. The ref had a quick trigger, and he stood it up. I don't think Gillian, when have we ever seen her get stood up? And it's not going to happen because she's going to have high activity. In the third round of the fight, Lucindo gets the mount, and she puts her chin in Gillian Roberts' eye socket. It's something I used to do as a white belt. I used to just dig my chin into people's eye. I don't know what I was doing. Just being a jerk. Probably know why nobody would want to roll with that guy, right? Like, no, dude, that's just a straight white belt. Like, you use your chin in wrestling, but you don't dig it into the person's eye socket. That's what Lucindo did. And for that reason, it got stood up. But when it got stood up, where was Marina Rodriguez? She was flat on her back. She does not have escapes from the mount. It is not going to happen. If you decide to go and fall off for subs, yeah, you can maybe give her the opportunity. You try to backpack her. But if you put her in mount, I don't think she's getting out, to be quite honest with you. So I think Gillian Robertson could definitely put her there. And
12-6, baby.
I just don't think she's sticking it 12-6 or whatever. She's not sticking her chin in her eye socket, and the ref's not standing it up. And she's down to elbow her however and wherever, as we've seen in multiple fights. So I think she, finds the taint of Marina Rodriguez, bow, 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 just like she did versus Pinheiro. Put her in the hospital, man. Probably needs stitches to that thing. So I think Gillian Robertson gets it done. 12-6 sub, I think, is live. I think dominant decision is live. I just think when, you have two fighters where one has a big grappling advantage, and unless Marina knocks her out, I just don't think she wins this fight. That's my read.
I tend to agree. The way I see this fight is Gillian KO, ends KO, fight not to go. That's my honest, sincere opinion. If you look back, Luana Pinheiro absorbed 78 total strikes in that fight, 52 significant strikes from Gillian Robertson. The vast majority of those were from the top position. Michelle Waterson Gomez absorbed 122 total strikes, 77 significant strikes. Frankly, I think if it wasn't a retirement fight, they stopped that fight on like 10 occasions. She was just taking unobstructed shots to the face for a large portion of that fight. So, yeah, I think Gillian Robertson could stop this fight with strikes, man. And that's the way I see it going down. So I'll do a little bit more research. I'll let y'all know where I end up, but that's the way I'm looking.
I mean,
Next.
dude, plus 5,000 and plus 3,200 for the round. I mean, plus 5,000 on the round 3 is kind of crazy.
Hell yeah. Next up, we got Azamat Bakoev taking on Ryan Loder at 185 pounds. Massive experience gap in this fight. Bakoev, way more professional fighting experience. Ryan Loder won the Ultimate Fighter. I did not think he looked extremely impressive in that Robert Valentin fight. I thought it was a minor miracle that Valentin didn't finish him when he had his back with a fully extended rear naked choke. I mean, tough guy, right? Hung in there. But I also think that kind of spoke to his opponent making some pretty fundamental jiu-jitsu mistakes. And yeah, ultimately, I don't know what to make of Loder except to say, like, if he's not getting consistent takedowns in this fight, I think he's going to get fucked up. And that's kind of the way I see it going down. I feel like Bakoev kind of looked middling and average before he got to the UFC, and maybe he still is. I think this line probably a slight overcorrection, but just seems to me like the more dynamic physical athlete. He's 29 years of age. I don't think he's a bad wrestler in his own right. So I just think if this fight stays on the feet, he's the more comfortable and dangerous striker. And I think he's probably going to find the chin. But if they mix it up in the wrestling, it is Iowa, it is wrestling country, then maybe Loder can make it interesting, big money line price. So I'm never going to be laying the minus 360 with a guy who is just, a much closer line with somebody like Zachary Reeves. But I think Bakoev gets the win here. What about my guy, Jewish Better? We'll kick it to you first, brother.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm going to have to film this one a little bit more, but I don't know if I'm going to get much from the film because from what I'm, taking, Bakoev's made a lot of improvements. Or at least from what we know, the upside's on the Bakoev side. And I just watched some Loder film, bro. This guy is not good at striking. He is not good at striking. I think if he stays on the feet with this guy, I think it's going to be a KO1 for Bakoev, similar to how he did Zach Reese. And yeah, that's where I'm at, dude. I'm going to have to do more film on this one, but for me, it's never Loder here. I don't think he's good.
All right. Well, then we largely see it the same way. Wiz, what do you think about this one, man? Are we not giving Ryan Loder enough credit, or do you think that he's also in over his head in this one?
I've basically studied every movement of Ryan Loder while I was helping Torres Finney to prep for his fight against Robert Valentin. And man, I feel like I have a really good read on this guy, but at the same time, he hasn't really given us much on tape to go off of. So it's one of those where it's hard to grasp where Ryan Loder is in his professional martial arts career because, yeah, we know he's a decent wrestler, but what else? That's the big question. What else? And I don't think he has much to offer on the feet. That's the conclusion I've come to, because this guy's hands are very much at his waist. In the few clips that we see where he's not trying to attempt to take down or getting taken down. And I just trust the hands of Bakoev much more, obviously because we have more film on it. Now, does that mean Ryan Loder's chin is dust? No, it doesn't. He got finished last time out, but it was after, that finished. I don't know. I just don't rate it that much against Robert Valentin, even though Finney is my boy and that didn't go to the way we expected it to go.
Hey, a dub's a dub, my guy.
A dub is a
dub.
Escape from the jaws.
Torres, you could argue, was not as dominant with the finish, right? But he controlled a grown man for 13 and a half minutes. Like what any which way you want to slice that, right? And Ryan Loder gave up his back and put himself in horrible position. So you kind of see when you go for the finish, you take some more risk. You incur that, right?
Yeah, and that's my thing, where Loder seems to gas around that 7.5 minute mark. And once that happens, I do think Bekova will start to take over if it does even get there, and probably finds like a late finish. The only thing I'll probably take a stab at here, I'm kind of curious now too, the round 3 props and round 2 props for Bekoyev, because I do
It's
see
like
a late
plus
finish.
850. I'm seeing.
Yeah, I do
For
like
round 3.
the overall finishing aspect in this fight. Like at under 2.5 at minus 105 is intriguing to me a little bit. Fight doesn't go at minus 130 is intriguing. I don't see iterations where Bekoyev looks like a minus 330, 380 favorite right now on Bet Online without him finishing the fight per se. So I think it's a Bekoyev finish. Maybe even if you want to sprinkle a loader submission at plus 1200. Not the worst look, but ultimately, I do think Bekoyev lands the knockout here in round 2. That's where my head is tending to lean towards. Probably a wrestling-based ground and pound knockout.
All right, there we have it. So we all kind of see this one the same way. I think we're all leaning Bekoyev, leaning him inside the distance, but maybe not feeling like the minus 400. It's like the slam spot of the week, All right, next up, fellas, we've got an interesting one. We've got 38-year-old Miesha Tate. Does look to be in pretty good shape for this one, but 38 years of age. You got to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. Yana Santos on the other side, I don't think has ever truly been on the level of Miesha Tate. However, 35 looks to be on, maybe the right supplementation. And maybe she's got the motivation coming into this one to go out there and make it competitive, go out there and try and get one over on somebody that at her peak of her powers might have had an advantage. I just don't really see it with Yana Santos, honestly. Like going back, Chelsea Chandler has kind of been shown to be a woman that could beat, LFA and Victa level fighters, but like she hasn't proven she could beat UFC level fighters really at this stage of the game. And Miesha Tate, certainly a UFC level fighter, right? Chandler had moments against Yana Santos in that fight. Later on down the stretch, Yana Santos starts to get touched a little bit, started to look sloppy in that one. And honestly, Miesha just has better skills than Chelsea Chandler, more consistent to go for takedowns, more reliable from the top position, more aggressive and assertive from there as well. So I think she's got opportunities to win this fight. Unless Yana's steroids have made her, impossible to take down, which I don't think they have, then I think Miesha Tate should be able to get on top and win the fight. That's the way I see it going down. Wiz, how do you feel about this one, brother? We'll kick it to you.
I think we need a chant. Miesha Tateov in 3. I think she's gonna go out there and in wrestling country, she's gonna wrestle. In all seriousness, I saw Miesha at the PI almost every single day when I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago. She's taking this serious, and if you guys followed her on Instagram over the past month, she's been nonstop training. And I understand she's 38 years old, but she's in the gym consistently, day in and day out, putting in work, which you gotta give her credit for. And that is something that you want to see out of someone who is later up and getting up there in age at 38. And her opponent isn't no spry chicken. She's 35, predominantly, I would say, a clinch striker, I guess. But for me, I think Miesha Tate's going to be able to land takedowns here. And if she's able to land takedowns, she'll likely cruise to a decision-based win. I don't rate Yana Santos' get-up game at all. And at the age of 35, if similar to the fight we were talking about earlier, where we kind of know that Marina Rodriguez was a finished product, I do think at 35, Yana Santos and Miesha Tate, both of them are their finished products, and we know what they have to offer. You're not going to miraculously make improvements over an 8-month period in terms of your wrestling and grappling. Even if it's been a year and a half, you're not going to make significant improvements in that department. So for me, I do see Miesha Tate winning a decision if she's able to land the takedowns here. Otherwise, I have no interest in this fight whatsoever. I'd rather go smoke some cigarettes, and I'm not a cigarette smoker.
There you go. Chilling with prates. That's what we call that. But in any case, we've got our guy Jewish Better to close us out. How do you feel about this one, brother? Do you think there's value on cupcake finishing props? Because that's kind of the way that I would be looking at this one, outside the money line perspective.
Bro, I think ripping darts is the new meta for MMA, if you ask me. You ask George St. Pierre, ask any of the high-level guys. They all smoke cigarettes. So What are we talking about here?
And then everybody asks why they can't get the finish in round 5.
Else.
Oh man, dude. I think if Miesha Tate's anything like she was, she's gonna win this fight here. And that's just due to I don't think Yana Santos has the best takedown defense. She kind of falls over with ease. Holly Holm was able to get multiple takedowns. And the main thing also is when you can get her on her back, it's a problem. I do think she has the upside in the striking here, though. I will say that. I think she will probably be able to hit Tate if it remains on the feet, but I don't think she'll be able to finish her. Him telling me that, she's taking it serious makes me feel a little bit better about this one, because especially where she's at in her career. But listening to interviews, you can kind of tell, she's saying she's here for a good time, not a long time. I think the UFC, the promotion really likes her. I remember when I went to UFC Austin, she fought Julia Avila. The whole crowd was super behind her. Everybody in the crowd was a big fan of her, rooting her on. And you could probably hear that across the broadcast even. But being in the crowd, it was even more shocking to me how many people really resonated with Miesha Tate in that spot. And I believe she was on the prelims there too, another prelim fighter. I think they tried and get these people watching the fights, and she's a very known name, fought high level since way back in the day. She's, had the matchups with Rousey, been around the game for a while. So I think the promotion likes her a lot more than Yana Santos. And I honestly think the ground and pound could be live here. As crazy of a call as it is, the later this fight goes, I thought Holly Holm had multiple chances to get it done. When I'm watching her go against Julia Avila, I know Avila was injured there, but I believe Avila has some pedigree in the jiu-jitsu. She's just pinching her nose. She's digging. She's grabbing the fence. She's doing whatever. She's just really mean. And I like grapplers like that. So, man, if she puts Yana on her back consistently, I think she could give her the door via sub, or I think even KO. I know she only KO'd one person. That was Marion Renault, and Marion Renault was fucking ancient. So it's a super long shot, but Yana Santos is not good, bro.
Well, I think you always have to look at not just, who the person's fighting, or excuse me, who the person is, but who they're fighting, right? Yana Santos has been TKO'd before. I'm pretty sure she folded up the tent in round 1 against Marina.
I think all of her UFC losses come via KO, like finishes, I want to say. Hold on, let me see.
Cyborg beat her up for sure. I'd have to think through the rest of them, but definitely, a lot of her losses. So
Aldana, Aspen Ladd, and Cyborg.
I'm pretty sure Aspen Ladd sprinted at her in the 3rd round too, and just dropped her randomly, kind of goofy stuff. So I'm just not sold on Yana Santos. Period. Point blank. Also, Yana Santos. Right? Hey, listen, hold on. It used to be Kunitskaya. Y'all see that Russian flag? That shit don't fly in Iowa, okay? I'm half kidding, but I do think that they're going to be rooting for Cupcake Tate in Heartland. I'll just tell you that.
The one thing that's promising,
before
we move on to the next one, the one thing that really stood out to me, especially on the Tate side, is obviously we've seen a lot of love for her by sharp money cappers that we know, at least that I know in the space that are on Miesha, but more than anything, I really enjoyed what she was saying in the press conferences and leading up to the fight, how she's taking this very seriously and how she's looking forward to the fight after this one, which in one way you can look at it as, is she overlooking Yana Santos? But in the other hand, you can look at it and say, okay, so she's really not just trying to take this fight by fight. She's trying to climb up again. Which at 38, I don't know how successful she's going to be at that. But just the mindset on its own is promising.
I can tell you this. There ain't a star in the women's bantamweight division. The closest thing they have to that is Kayla Harrison, who they have to import. Julianna Pena is not going to move units on pay-per-view. That's a fucking stone cold fact. And so when I think about, what are we looking at here? We're looking at the UFC trying to manufacture a meaningful fighter at women's bantamweight by matchmaking her appropriately. We did the Ketlin Vieira experiment. She got her face turned into meatloaf. We don't need to see that again, right? Now let's give her some older women in the division that she could take down, beat up, and we could sell a fight on pay-per-view. So when Kayla Harrison, with all due respect, in all likelihood, smashes her into a paste, then we could sell her as a great champion because she beat a former UFC champion in Miesha Tate. So that's the way I see it going down. Hey, if Miesha gets to the title fight, we'll have to give her credit and respect and see how that goes. But honestly, I think that is what the long-term game plan is here, guys. If you're a pro wrestling booker and you're looking at WrestleMania for next year, this is what they're doing on paper. Try and get this one laid out. In the UFC, you got to go out there and win the fights, right? But I think ultimately they're putting Miesha Tate in a position to succeed. I show you on screen. I've done a pretty good job capping Miesha Tate fights. And when you look at it, I was on Ketlen Vieira when a lot of people were on the opposite side. I've been on Ketlen Vieira a few times when the market stood against me hard. Holly Holm as well. Miesha Tate against Marion Renault, against Julia Avila. What do they have in common? Older women that didn't have any athletic intangibles that were going to stop Miesha Tate from getting to her game. And in this fight, I have marginally more concern, right? It's not at plus money like it was last time, very appealing, but I just think she gets the job done. I think she's the better fighter. All right, folks, we got Jeremy Stephens from Des Moines, Iowa. He's making his comeback to the UFC. In my humble opinion, this is his retirement fight from the promotion, not from professional fighting. He'll probably be back in BKFC, 6 weeks from now. But when you look at this guy, Jeremy Stephens, Lil Heathen, the guy has been pretty washed in MMA for some time, but he's a UFC fighter, guys. And he stepped away. He's trying to make money. They get it. But this guy's walked out like 33 times for the promotion. He's done the damn thing over and over. Highlight reel knockouts against guys you've heard of, guys you respect. Sent RDA to the land of wind and ghosts before it was cool. Like, this guy, really impressive fighter in his time. But where was his best work done? In the featherweight division, which he's no longer competing in. Where is his biggest liability as a fighter? It's on the mat. He's simply not up to snuff like a lot of these other guys are. And Mateusz Gamrot, perfect example, takes him to the ground, almost rips his shoulder off completely. And Mateusz Gamrot, very good grappler. Make no mistake about that. But is he doing that to a lot of other guys in the UFC? The answer is no. And I think it's because of size. I think it's because of skill and technique. And I think it's because of age, damage accrued, 38 years of age. That's a time when you start getting knocked out more frequently in the UFC. When you've had multiple careers in combat, when you spent your life getting punched in the head, it can be very hard to sustain that type of career long-term. So the fact that Jeremy Stephens can still take a good punch is a fucking credit to him, right? But aside from that, I just don't think that this guy can grapple at a UFC, much less a high-level professional mixed martial arts pedigree at this point. And I think Mason Jones, on the other hand, that's what he can do, right? He could wrestle, he could grapple, he's got some judo, he's got jiu-jitsu. I just think he's going to have too many tools in too many phases, and I think he's too sharp right now. That being said, if this kid wants to come out there and prove a point, fucking swing around hands with Jeremy Stephens, he might be doing the twitching, looking at the lights guy. I'll just tell you, man, Jeremy Stephens, what's the last thing to go? Power in your hands. The guy hits like a fucking truck. When I knock people out, they don't fucking move. And he's got one more chance, basically, to do that for his career, to go out there in front of the people of Iowa. He is born, bred, bleeds Iowa, man. And I think he's going to go out there and give everything he's got. So do I think he wins the fight? I certainly do not. Am I laying minus 500 against him? No, I'm not. The way I would target this fight, I would look at the unders. I don't think we're going to be on. I think he's here for a good time, not a long time. I'll put it that way. And on the other side of things, man, like maybe it's a fight of the night brawl and they bang it out. Maybe. I think more often than not, they have some exchanges. Jeremy tries to go crazy on him. He tries to fucking throw some big uppercuts, some crazy shit. Mason takes him to the ground and fucking submits him. I think that's how it goes. I think he then gets a wave off and an emotional speech and they play a fucking retirement video and that's the end of it. And everybody goes home happy, win or lose. And I think Mason Jones, he deserves to be back in the UFC. He's a solid fighter. He had a tough run out in terms of his opponents. First time out. Now they're giving him a little bit of a softer landing. Hard opponent, guy with a name, right? You got to still go out there and earn it. But there's a clear path to victory, and I think he's going to take it. So give me Mason Jones to win this fight by submission in the first 2 rounds. How about you, fellas? We'll start with the Jew.
Why did all my guys get a fucking retirement video and then Stipe Miocic just goes out like it's fucking nothing? What happened?
If you remember, they played one at like 5 a.m. during a Chinese card. They forgot to do it on the same one.
Oh my Lord, dude. Like, what are we doing here? Oh man, dude. I think the takedown defense is gonna be a problem. Like round 1 KO over Stephens in the first couple minutes. Jones got a fucking crazy chin though, bro. He's a fucking Welsh guy. They just fucking drink piss and fucking fight. And yeah, if you guys are thinking about piss, like actual piss, that's not it. It's a terminology for beer. My man Lucrative, he put me onto it. Yeah, he's just gonna be drinking piss and fucking eating shots to the chin. He just doesn't give a fuck. Mason Jones, very hittable, but I think he's gonna realize like, hey, yo, bro, I gotta take this one to the ground. Let me put him on his back where he's not as good. 3-5 career to the sub. I think he can ground and pound knock him out as well. I think he could even clip Stevens on the chin. I don't think it's the most likely outcome, but Stevens getting older, 39 years old. This isn't boxing. This isn't bare knuckle. It's the UFC now, so yeah, man. I think he gets taken down though. Ultimately, I'm not gonna harp on it much more.
There you have it. I agree with you. How about you, Wiz?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it 3 for 3. No surprise here. I think Jeremy Stephens is round 1 KO or bust, which also no surprise. But Mason Jones, for those who don't know, at least this is what I read somewhere, he actually was offered another contract in the UFC and he declined it. He declined it to go back to the Cage Warriors and thought that he had some things to brush up on and improve. And seems like he's in a much better spot now. Obviously, going back to the Cage Warriors and winning every single fight again has brought him some more confidence. And I've always been a big fan of Mason Jones. He was touted to be a pretty big prospect early on, came into the UFC, and his biggest issue is always the fact that he's just so damn hittable. And, it still is the case, but I think he's gotten a lot smarter in terms of knowing when to grapple and when to strike and who to do each of those things against. So for me, I do think that Mason Jones probably shoots for takedowns from the jump here if he was smart. Take the path of least resistance and try to find the early sub or ground and pound TKO, because the one thing about Jeremy Stephens is he hasn't fought an MMA fight in about 2 years, 2.5 years. So you got to cap that too. The whole aspect of grappling and kicking has probably not been in his preparation at all for the last 2.5 years. So he's been doing some BKFC, bare knuckle stuff in BKFC. So that's also to be determined how the rest of his game looks like, because we haven't really seen anything besides the hands. And when you go from a full MMA rule set to bare knuckle, which is just hands, back to MMA, we really haven't seen anyone do something like that just yet. And I think that might be a big problem for Jeremy here. And I think that's what the line's indicating. So for me, the much younger fighter, the much fresher fighter with the adaptability in terms of a ground game too. All signs point to Mason Jones being good chalk.
We all see it the same way. I wanted to like Jeremy in this spot. Honestly, huge plus money number, narrative, all this stuff. But honestly, the more I look into it, I feel like the narrative is the opposite. One fight contract. This is a business built on your next selling of a fight, right? So we're giving a guy a one fight contract. That's not a bullish signal for me. All right, next up, guys, we got Cam Smotherman taking on Surrey City. I have just realized that my laptop is not plugged in. I'm going to have to go grab my laptop charger from the other room. So I'm going to kick this over to my brother Wiz for the first breakdown here. Don't worry, guys. I can still hear. I got my headphones. I got Bluetooth. It's portable. I'm going to listen to this breakdown closely, but I wanted to just kick it over to you so that way the show does not end prematurely as my shit dies. Wiz, please take it away.
I got you. And this is a pretty exciting matchup. On one hand, we have a guy in Cameron Smotherman who came into the contender series about almost 2 years ago. Got knocked out by someone who you would not generally think would be knocking people out in Charlampos Gregorio, who is now no longer in the UFC. Really fumbled his bag there. And then went off to win 4 straight fights, including a short notice replacement fight against Jake Hadley, where he was something like a plus 450, 470 underdog, which really impressive. The biggest hole in Smotherman's game, and always has been, is the grappling and the wrestling. We've seen him get stuck on bottom for extended periods of time on the regional scene. And then that's why he was such a huge underdog to Hadley at the time. It was A, short notice, but more importantly, B, was that he had the grappling hold, and Hadley, has shown some decent grappling in the UFC level. But on the other hand, we have Sorry City, who, yeah, tough guy, does tend to shoot takedowns, okay striking, but also tends to get hit quite a bit. I think on the feet, Cameron Smotherman's the much, and when I say much, I really am emphasizing the much better striker. I think it's not even close on the feet. And the way that he leaves his face open for shots, I think Cameron Smotherman may be able to land one and take home the W. But on the other hand, if City is able to chain takedowns and really rack up some control time, I do see a path for him as well. Now, let's not act like Cameron Smotherman's chin is not a liability either, because this man's been dropped in a lot of his fights. Tends to recover pretty well, which I will give him that. But still, we're now in the UFC. It's no longer Fury, and people will not really let you recover as often as these lower level regional guys. So if you get dropped in the UFC, a lot of these guys will tend to smother you and really try to capitalize on it. Whereas in other promotions, I think people get a little stargazed by the knockdown and like, oh shoot, I just knocked him down. I'm not gonna continue to go after it, which has been the case for him in his fights. If you look at the regional scene and his tape from Fury, that was the case. These guys just land on him, and since he was such an overwhelming favorite and was dominating the fight up until the point, they just tend to admire their work, and that's what allows them to get back up. So for me, I will side ever so slightly with Cameron Smotherman here, but am I confident in that read at all? No. I do see a world where City can land the takedowns. I think the best opportunity for this fight would be a live bet after round 1 to see if City's able to land takedowns or not. If he isn't and line is close, I'm taking Cameron Smotherman. Fair and simple.
Nice. I tend to agree with your read, my man. Jewish Better, how do you feel about this one?
I don't think City's some world beater on the grappling. Honestly, I've seen him make even mistakes down there. Garrett Armfield, a great wrestler, but Ryan Coos, that was the plus 180 that got away from me on Cameron Smotherman. There, I was there live for that fight, and Coos was having grappling success, that's for sure. But he's a guy that trains at a goat shed, primarily a wrestler, and Smotherman showed some improvements in that fight. I don't even know if Hadley shot a takedown, but if he did, he definitely didn't get it. And that was one of the reasons I was confident Hadley is a big underdog there. I do agree, the chin could be a concern. I think Charlampos kind of caught him quick, came out there right out of the gate, contender series fight, put this guy, really quickly. And Cam was a big favorite in that spot. So a little bit different here. You got him as a dog, but City is just not proving anything to me. I was watching fights against guys like Austin Russell where he had went 5-round decision. So the guy has 5-round experience, but it wasn't really that good of a fight, honestly. And Russell was piecing him up in the first couple of rounds, getting offense off. And honestly, who the fuck is this guy? And as Jeremy Steve, who the fuck is that guy? And I know you could say the same thing for some stuff, right, on the Smotherman side, but I think he's fought in the better level of competition overall. Ramon Tavares, the win on Contender Series, my man Liam always talks about it. They didn't want him to win. They did not want this guy to win because they brought him back for the rematch. I believe Ramon Tavares was just kind of using his footwork, using the boxing, stay on the outside, kind of like I think Cameron Smotherman could do, and even dropped our guy. So yeah, it's an interesting spot. I think the Lobo gym move for Cam Smotherman is going to be huge. You go from a gym, Metro Fight Club, what the fuck, after the Godfather of Houston MMA, Sal Solis, the GOAT, rest in peace. He passed away, and Adrian had to take over for them, and now he's found new training partners. Now he's found new life, something different. Whereas a young fighter, I think that could make massive improvements for him. And Diego Lopez is his guy. They're tight knit, so I think Diego Lopez said something to the matchmakers and said, you got to get this guy in the UFC. They gave him Ryan Mondola. He showed a few things in that fight. I think he took it kind of easy. I think people kind of could look at that fight and see oh, he's getting hit. I think he knew that this guy wasn't going to hurt him on the feet, kind of let things play out. Maybe see, hey, can I take these shots? People say I'm chinny. You want to know if you can take these shots. Actually winds up getting a submission in the third round. So I know this guy's grappling is improving because, he's going for submissions now where he might have not had the confidence before that gym change to go for these things. And I just think that Cameron Smotherman's the higher upside fighter here. I think he's going to have the better boxing. And I even think he could hurt Sergey City on the other end because we always talk about Cameron's chin, but I've seen City hurt in a lot of these fights as well. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the underdog here, slight underdog here, still in Cameron Smotherman. I'm going to let my guy Big Bird taking over because I got to go. I'm going to go pick up my friend from work, in real life friend. I appreciate my online friends, though, here. Wizz MMA, LiamPicksFights. Hopefully we get Big Bird in here, and I will be on my phone listening. I'll be in the chat, guys. Stay tuned this week. I'll be on more shows, hopefully. And, man, my guy Liam, appreciate you having me on here. I love talking with my guy Wiz as well. You guys are the fucking shit. Yo, let's fucking wreck the bookies this week.
Shout out, my brother.
Hell yeah, brother. Thank you for being here, my man. We'll see. I sent out the bat signal, so if Pierce wants to pull up, he's more than welcome. I sent him the link on X. But if not, we will trudge on. Just the two, the intrepid two. But my brother, safe travels always, and we appreciate you coming on and sharing your thoughts. If you have anything you want to add in the comment section, whatever, you're always feel free to do that, and we'll pin it up for everybody who's looking for it, all right? You're the man. Safe travels.
Let's go.
Let's go. All right, my man. And then there were two. I'll give my opinion real quick on this one, brother. And essentially, I'm just going to round it out with a unanimous panel. It's no disrespect to Surrey City. I always look at a couple different things, right? Why are we here? That's the number one question I ask myself when they book a fight in the UFC, because I think a lot of times, they're just like, we got two guys, let's see what happens, right? But there's oftentimes a little more method to the madness than that, right? And one thing that stood out to me, they got a Canadian event that's 2 weeks away? They got this Canadian guy just languishing in Iowa, right? Why? What's he doing there? Maybe it's to go get the people fired up before the Canadian event. Frankly, I don't see it that way, right? I think this fight was put together to see what do we have with Cam Smotherman. I think you get one mulligan, right? You get caught by Charlampos Gregorio. He runs you over. It's a horrible look, in my humble opinion, right? My guy Chad and Hellinger gave him the tour of the octagon, right? The Canadian Alpha. Y'all must have forgot. But when you look at this guy, Cam Smotherman, for me, he's a guy that's starting to get the confidence. He's starting to come into his own. And frankly, look at how Jake Hadley just did over in the PFL. He looked sensational, right? He looked like a really good fighter over there. And Cam Smotherman came and shut him down on short notice, flew halfway across the world, suboptimal circumstances there. Then you look at the fight he had before, it's like, all right, Surrey City, a guy that I feel like you can make a pretty decent argument. He's 0-3 in the UFC in terms of like fights he should have won, right? Like early stoppage on Contender Series. I didn't think he beat Ramon Tavares. I know that's a controversial statement now. It was a close enough fight. I didn't think he beat Garrett Armfield. He didn't think he beat Garrett Armfield. Garrett didn't think he beat Garrett Armfield. I mean, everybody but the judges sort of agreed on that one, I think. But ultimately, he's fighting close, right? He's not a pushover. He's not a punk. He's a tough kid. He take the shots and keep coming forward. But nothing about his game really stands out to me as plus level, right? I don't think he's a better grappler than the average UFC fighter, honestly. And I don't think he's a better striker than the average UFC fighter. I think he's tough. I think he's got decent volume. I think he's a willing scrapper. I think he can compete. I just don't think he's very special, and there's no disrespect there. That's just the way I see it, man. Even, the Mateo Vogel fight. Is that guy proven UFC level? No, he's like fringe UFC level. He's like right on the outside looking in. I hope he gets another opportunity. But again, guys that are good but haven't quite broken through. And I'll say this as a guy who's a Canada respecter, right? Chad and Hellinger. You've never heard somebody more supportive than me, right? Eamon Zahabi. How many times did I tell you I'll stop fading my guy until he fucking takes your money? All right, I've been there. Team Canada, I'm there, right? Mike Milan, I tried to make the case for him before he sold it down the river against Neil Magny. I've been there on Team Canada. But the results haven't been there. And eventually you got to start holding the results accountable. Pat Pitlick. Imperato. They tried to bring in a bunch of these guys on Contender Series. Give them shots. Give them opportunities. And they don't fucking win. And eventually they're just like, what do we do here? I think they want to have more good Canadian fighters. But like the guys that are even like Caio Machado is like a Brazilian guy that lived in Canada. They're like, maybe. 0-3 in the UFC. It's just like they can't buy a win right now. You know, Ayman Zahabi, if he goes out there and beats Jose Aldo, he's going to also have to take the whole fucking globe off his back, dude. He's been putting fucking Canada on the back each and every time out and carrying it back into the rankings. Jasmine Jasudavicius, she's the other one. She's the other Atlas holding up Canada right now. And I just think until proven otherwise, I can't really trust it. But I see a lot of vulnerabilities. And I just don't see Surrey City as being like a special fighter right now. I think Cam Smotherman, he's got his own flaws. He's got his own problems. But that performance against Jake Hadley was smooth. It was crisp. It was technical. It was on short notice. He did it all when he needed to, right? Big high-pressure situation, came out delivered. 27 years of age. I thought he put out the best product to date in his last contest. So for me, I feel like he's going to go out there and get the job done on Saturday. But let's see how he does with a little bit more notice, right? With a little bit more opportunity. Let's see what he can do with this one. I think he might be looking for a finish here. But shout out to our Canadians. I know City's a good fighter, right? He's not a pushover. I just think he's a little too hittable for me. Oh, next up, my man. This is a fascinating fight, Wiz. I honestly am fired up for this one. I think this is probably the most interesting card on the slate. Undefeated fighter and undefeated fighters. What do we know? 2025 has not been the year of the undefeated fighter, man. They've been struggling on the bus. But on the other side, Montel Jackson maybe dealing with a little bit of inactivity when he's been out there. He's typically been sensational, right? If you can't out-wrestle, out-grapple this guy, he tends to win the fight. So for me, that's what makes it super fascinating, right? You got a guy who's only been out-wrestled, out-grappled in his losses, Montel Jackson. You got a guy who's never lost, but between you and me, I'm not sure he beat Davey Grant. They gave me a say on the scorecards there. Maybe it goes the other way. So I think that this guy's had a fortunate run out, to tell you the truth. Even in terms of the matchmaking, Simon Oliveira, a guy that's never gone on to get a win, right? Like a couple of these guys, like not very high level, did his job accordingly, got the win. But the guys that are quality enough to be here, right, stick around, long-term guys, they're split decisions, they're close fights, they're nip-tuck. And frankly, I don't think he's got any wrestling and grappling upside against Montel. I think the way he wins this fight, close decision, outworks him a little bit. That's honestly how I see him getting it done. Lands 80 strikes to 70, something like that. But honestly, man, I think Montel Jackson is too dangerous everywhere. I think he's got a decent enough submission game that if Marcos tries to mix in the wrestling here that we saw against Yanez, I think he will be made to pay for it. And I think that when you look at the striking on the feet, like, I think Marcos is a respectable enough guy, but I don't think he's like supreme volume, like the most volume you've ever seen. He's got a decent tempo, a decent volume too, but against guys that can hit back and like that earn his respect, he tends to kind of limit that a little bit, right? Put it on a slower simmer. And I think if you're not going to pressure Montel Jackson, you're not going to try and take him down. He's got a lot of opportunities to land big, powerful shots. And I think in terms of moment winning, like he's got a lot of moment winning potential in this one, whether it's with big moments on the ground, whether it's with big one shot, drop you, stumble you, stagger you backwards. And he's got big hands. It's going to be a talking point this week, but it matters, dude. Like when you can connect with all this big surface area, it doesn't take a perfect shot, right? The edge of my fist hits you on the temple. Now your equilibrium's a little bit gone. That could sway around right there. So for me, I just like more of Montel Jackson's offense. I like his experience a little bit better as well. Give me Montel Jackson to get the win. And honestly, man, I think he knocks him the fuck out. How about you?
Well, if you think that, the thing that I'm going to bring up to you is going to be very nice. I think the under 2.5 is the best bet in this fight at plus 165. And it's largely correlated to Montel Jackson, obviously, because Daniel Marcos is not a finisher by any means at all. Really nice 17-0 shiny record. And I'm not going to take anything away from Daniel Marcos. Really crisp striking. Dude is a laser. He lands on everyone, but just doesn't have the power. Will throw out a ton of volume. But as you mentioned, when he faces any power coming in the opposite direction, he tends to, be a little bit more conservative with his efforts. And that's understandably so, because if you're, throwing volume, you're definitely leaving yourself vulnerable at times. And if power comes over the top on the other side, it's going to make you a little bit more hesitant. Now, when you're facing someone in Montel Jackson who, is going to be the larger fighter here, 3 inches of height, and then 6.5 inches of reach. And then we remember the headlines. It's not his last fight. It wasn't the one before. I think it was like 2 or 3 fights ago for Montel where they brought up the the size of his hands being larger than the size of Francis Ngannou's. That's kind of wild at bantamweight. Still thinking about it till this day. But Montel loses to fighters that can wrestle him and grapple him. And we just haven't seen that in quite some time. Montel's biggest issue is inactivity, because I think this guy could be a top contender in the division at any point if he just strings together a few wins in a shorter time period, not once a year, maybe even twice a year. Let this guy fight, I hope he just wants to fight. But yeah, I do think that Montel Jackson is going to be able to land the kill shot here on Daniel Marcos, who leaves a lot of opportunities to get hit. He just has not gotten hit by the right power puncher to put him out or to at least hurt him. I think Montel really has to throw this one in the trash can to lose it. I think it's that kind of fight for him. So for me, I'm all aboard Montel Jackson, but more importantly, the under 2.5 plus 165 is calling my name. I just don't see a world where Montel is not able to land the heavier shots early on and not put Daniel Marcos out, or at least hurt him to the point where plus 165 does not look like value. So for me, all signs point to Montel, all signs point to the under.
How about a couple quick stats for you, my man? 7 fights in a row with a knockdown recorded for Montel Jackson. 1 against Colares, 1 against Johns, 2 against Strader, 4 against Baez, 1 against Arce, 1 against Yaya, 1 against Damon Blackshear. This guy hits like a fucking truck. I think he's putting Marcos down. Plus 400 to the KO. That's the way I think this one goes. If Montel Jackson is who I think he is, and I think he's a problem right now at 135, 33 years of age, so he's got a shitter get off the pot, but I honestly think he's the guy right now. And I think Marcos has been skating by on the fact that he's a good fighter that's got a good process, and he can win a lot of fights against guys that don't have that X factor, so to speak. I think Montel Jackson has the X factor, and I think this is the coming out party for him. He's on a main card here, big opportunity. Let's see if he can get 2 big knockouts together in a row to get him, that big, meaningful ranked opportunity next.
How did Montel Jackson, how did he not knock out JP Bays?
You want to know the best part? I bet JP Bays on the money line. I said before the fight, I was like, I guarantee you he will take his back. He took his back. He had opportunities, but you know the thing? Montel, good enough grappler to defend, and dropped him literally every time they were at distance. So JP Baez hung on by what we call a thread in the industry. He was out 5 times. All right, next up, my man. Speaking of guys who might go out 5 times, Santiago Ponzinibbio, I think peak of his powers, really, really good fighter. I don't think he's at the peak of his powers anymore. This is a guy who was 1 away from fighting for the welterweight title, kind of disappeared for years in his prime. He got that serious blood infection. Hasn't been the same guy since in terms of durability, but still aggressive, still wants to win. You can tell the guy still shows up in shape, puts in the effort, wants it. But, at 38 years of age, there's just certain realities of fighting. He's had a lot of pro fights, even more than Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez probably evens him up when you consider the prison fights, right? But I think when you look at this, you got 2 guys that have taken a metric fuck ton of damage between the 2 of them. And they both have pretty decent process on offense. They're going to throw out offense. They're going to attempt to hurt each other. Ponzinibbio throws a stiff jab. He throws combinations, 1-2. He throws the hard low kicks. He's going to try and chip away at you. And on the other side, we kind of saw he can get hurt like he did last time out against Carlson Harris. He can hurt you back, right? He can kind of track you down and find a way back. But Daniel Rodriguez, man, Ian Gary kicked his head off. I think people are holding that against him for some reason. It's Ian's not known for being a one-punch KO artist, but is he a better striker than a lot of guys? Yeah. Did he set expectations for a guy that he was going to low kick him and then head kick him? Yes. And it was just tough run out for D-Rod there. Some of the other fights that he's had in the UFC, though, are the ones that concern me, the Dwight Grant fight. That's a throwback example, but I've been watching fights for a long time, so I've seen all this shit. And he got hurt really bad in that fight. And Dwight Grant, almost had him out of there and then had cardiac arrest, so he was able to come back and rally on him. But the other thing is, man, I remember distinctly, I bet plus 680, plus 700, something like this on Neil Magny inside the distance, 8 minutes before that fight was going to start. Cause I'm this is a fucking welterweight fight. Is it not? These are 2 welterweight men. it's a 0% that Neil Magny finishes him. I was just like, I don't know. Like, Neil's not a great finisher, but like, if you make mistakes, if you slow down, he'll put you out of there. I mean, ask Mike Malott, right? Winning, 13 minutes of the fight, starts to slow down at the end. Neil Magny gets on top, starts getting in the mount. He's like, yeah, do you have enough cardio to respond? If not, I'm getting you out of here. And he did the same thing to D-Rod, right? Like, if you had said to me, there's a jiu-jitsu match this weekend, Neil Magny, D-Rod, I'm like, give me D-Rod. He's going to win that. That's going to turn out just fine for him. You make it the end of an MMA fight where he's already throwing a bunch and starting to tire out a little bit, and he's been in the clinch. He's tired, man, and he just gave it up to Neil. And for me, I think that this is kind of like the Dalby Brown fight of the week, right? And last week, I really lived with a lot of regret that I didn't just take the fight not to go. I had said all week, I was like, I love the fight not to go. It seems like a crazy price. Like, yeah, they go to decision sometimes, but every fight they almost die. I feel like both these guys are going to get hurt 600 times in this fight. Like, if this goes to decision, I feel like everybody's doing the salsa once, like at least per round. Like, it just seems to me like a fight where they're going to connect a lot of shots, and I don't think either one of them take damage well at this point in their career. So for me, like, any mistakes here could just be lethal, right? And I don't think Ponzinibbio is an aggressive grappler. But if you're completely exhausted in front of him, Neil Magny's not that aggressive a grappler. If you're exhausted, you're exhausted. You tend to give it up a little bit easier. And I wouldn't put it past either of these guys. They're both 38, right? They're both probably going to throw out 100 significant strikes if they're out there for the full 15. So for me, I think that this is a violent fight. And I think that this fight could end inside the distance. A lot of people are talking about, split decision territory. Both these guys, decisionators, like, you're going to land 100 head strikes at 170 pounds with two guys that can't take the best shot. Like, for me, that just feels like a recipe for disaster. What about you, my brother? You think that this one's going to end violently, or do you have anything at all you want to say on this one?
Yeah, this one I can't say much. D-Rod, I haven't been working with him personally too much, but he trains out of my gym, so out of respect, I won't really say much on this fight. But, the one thing I always say is Classic Fight Team is the #1 striking gym in California, and that's where D-Rod's training at. So, War D-Rod.
War D-Rod. Hey, somebody go down. That's all I say. We'll be rooting for my guy D-Rod out of respect for not only the Ian Gary camp, but also our guy Wizz. However, somebody hit the deck, right? We're not going to ask too many questions, fellas. Just hit the deck, all right?
Yeah, I do think that this fight could play out violently. I do see the angle where both guys not really known for being power punchers, but I mean, obviously they're getting up there in age. Both 38. Ponzinibbio not looking the best. He's slow. Daniel Rodriguez, same thing, but looking improved.
Love to hear it. Now, we have been having people comment since the very beginning of this live stream asking about our thoughts on this fight. My brother, we'll kick it over to you first. A grappler's delight in many ways. Rene de Ridder, special fighter, taking on Bo Nickel, American wrestling great. How do you see this one going down?
All right. So, yeah, everyone's been asking about this fight. Finally here, co-main event. Let's start on Rainier de Ridder. Surprise, we do not know anything about Rainier de Ridder. A lot of people are going to come out here and be like, oh, but he beat GM3 and Kevin Holland. Go rewatch those fights, please. The Kevin Holland fight, injury in the first round, a rib injury. And obviously, listen, at 185, we know that Holland is just not Holland. He gets out physicaled by these guys. I think that fight he weighed in at 183 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, as well. And Rainier said he walked around at 203 during fight day. So that's a huge difference in weight, first of all. Second of all, Rainier de Ridder in the GM3 fight was getting pieced up on the feet by GM3, who just went out there not too long ago and absolutely stunk it up in the striking. So that's just a big red flag for me. I understand it was his UFC debut, but never really known to be much of a striker. And neither is Bo Nickel, which is a good thing for him, because otherwise I think this matchup would have went even more terribly for him. But on top of that, the guy tends to make quite a bit of mistakes in his grappling too. He's touted to be a grappler and has some submissions on his record. But I mean, you go ahead and watch the fights in one championship against Anatoly, and he was making a shitload of mistakes in the grappling. Where in a fight against someone like Bo Nickel, who maybe not a grappler, but a wrestler first, but a very dominant wrestler at that, who's learning the submission game, you just can't make those mistakes against someone who's going to be positionally sound as Bo. Because if we know anything about wrestlers, it's position over submission, obviously, and when you're facing at the time the number one ranked NCAA wrestler in the world, you're not going to want to make mistakes. Now, where I do think this fight is going to take place, I think this fight's going to take place on the feet. And if it's on the feet, I think Bo Nickel has I won't say the greatest striking, but he has the meat and potatoes. He knows how to angle in, angle out at least. And he'll be able to land on Rainier de Ridder, who does not have the best chin. I think one of those shots is probably going to put Rainier out. And whether Bo Nickel finishes it via submission, or if he takes him down and ground and pounds him, I personally can see either way. But Rainier de Ridder to me is not flawed fighter in terms of the UFC, but definitely not top 5 material if you were to ask me. And I think Bo Nickel is on his way there. Very few things to talk about Bo Nickel here. Obviously, he's been training in this camp for the past month and a half. He's taken a very long time to prepare for this fight, and rightfully so. He's facing someone who was a double champ at 2 divisions, and has made quite a name for himself. He will be the shorter fighter here by 3 inches. And I just think that Bo's preparation overall is what's going to be the deciding factor. Ultimately, with these guys that come from the wrestling scene in college who are amongst the top ranks, I'm not going to talk about every single NCAA wrestler here, but when you're talking about the top 5s that make it to the UFC and really have stood out in the college wrestling scene, their biggest thing is their game planning. And that's what I admire about these college wrestlers, because they grind it out. They're working day in and day out. And with a guy like Bo Nickel, we know that he's not finished goods just yet. But if and when he gets there, he's going to be a problem. And he's only 29 years old. So at 7-0, I expect him to make big improvements, not just in the striking, but his overall MMA game and just blending things together. All that to say, I think Bo Nickel wins inside the distance here. My brother Liam, what do you think about this fight? It's exciting.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about it. And I definitely got to say we have some disagreements here, right? Which is, first of all, I give Rene a lot more credit, I think, for his performances so far in the UFC. Now, against Gerald Meerschaert, Gerald Meerschaert's a tricky guy to handicap, right? I bet him against Khamzat Chimaev. It's one of the worst bets I've ever placed in my life, right? But when you look back at why, it's because GM3 is a tricky, awkward guy, right? I bet him against Makhmud Muradov, and it played out exactly, in the way that GM3 fights often do, which is he lands more than people expect him to, right? He hurts people more than they think because they think this guy can't strike, he sucks, right? And again, this isn't my opinion. This is how fighters talk about him before the fight. They're like, he can't strike. He's got nothing for me on the feet. And then he kicks him with that big lead leg that he's got, right? It takes him half an hour to swing it from one side of his body to the other. But when it hits you, it hurts, right? He puts some body kicks on guys. He puts straight punches out there. He's a Duke Rufus product. Is he a sophisticated striker? No, he is not. But is he an effective striker? For MMA, yeah, man, dude, he hurt Makhmud Muradov. He beat the fuck out of Bruno Silva. Beat him up. I know we claimed it for jiu-jitsu, American jiu-jitsu. He claimed it at the end. Dude, he beat that guy's ass. He dropped him and he could have just went ding, ding, and been done with it, right? So I feel like you look at GM3 and he gets no credit for his striking. He gets outstruck by Brad Tavares by 9 significant strikes. His takedowns didn't work, so he was going to lose the fight optically, right? But volume for volume, he's out there attempting offense, throwing it out there, landing his own stuff. He's just there to be hit, right? His defense isn't going to work because he's slow as shit. When you look at Rene de Ridder, I think he's defensively a complete mess on the feet, right? The guy does not know defensively what he should be doing a lot of the time. But offensively, I think he's probably the best striker that Bo Nickel's fought so far in the UFC. And people can laugh at me for saying that. Look at the other guys he's fighting. Frankly, there's a reason he's minus 3,000 against Jamie Pickett and Val Woodburn. These guys aren't UFC level, right? No disrespect. They're not. You look at their results, their performances, that tells you that. So now I say to myself, okay, Rene de Ridder, he gets tested right off the rip, right? They give him GM3, and GM3 is a guy that, bro, if you're a grappler, you're not fucking thrilled to sign on the dotted line against GM3. You're like, how am I going to fucking submit this guy? You have to do what he did, which is commit to getting him really tired. And he shot 10 takedowns or something, right? He kept putting GM3 on the ground. His takedowns, by the way, I was impressed by. I actually thought his wrestling looked sharp in that fight. Never came close to putting his head in a bad guillotine, really. Like, he was just getting simple takedowns, doubling off. He looked good. Is he going to take down Bo with those shots? No, right? Like, I'm pretty sure he's not doing that. But here's where I think the fight gets interesting. I don't think we've seen Bo Nickel tired in an MMA fight. Like, I don't think we've seen that, right? Like, I think even the Paul Craig fight, super easy, controlled, like, pace. He outlanded Paul Craig on significant strikes, 54-47. And after the fight, he goes on and does this interview with Ariel Helwani. He's like, I thought it was a domination. I thought it wasn't close. And like, sometimes fighters say that shit, and it's because their manager got in their ear and they're like, hey, go sell it. Like, do what you got to do. Like, it wasn't great, but we got to just market ourselves and move on. Hate them or love them. Any press is good press. Just go out there and say what you got to say. Maybe it was that, right? And if that's the case, then like, you just kind of throw it out from what it means in the cage. But I thought it was delusional at the time. I still think it's delusional. Like, you're fighting Paul Craig, who is a mark on the feet, right? He's been knocked out brutally by worse guys in the division, right? So it's like, okay, we know that Paul Craig is like vulnerable against almost anybody on the feet, right? It's not his forte. He's got some ability when he's on top of people to hurt them. But like, striking wise, he's not very sound, right? And his hands are like non-existent. He doesn't even attempt to throw hands. So what does he do? He kicks to the leg and to the body. And honestly, dude, I thought watching that fight live, you could have made a case for scoring it for Paul Craig. And I know that sounds insane. The reason Bo deserves the decision is because the head strikes that landed, the meaningful pop your head, he did it like once around. It reminded me of like Shavkat Ian Gary. Like, yeah, he landed the one shot that mattered. But like, if he doesn't land that punch, then they just went 50-50 on strikes, and it's fucking Paul Craig. And I watched that fight, and I just said to myself, like, did Paul try and push the wrestling and the grappling? Not really. And he didn't really have any ability to do so. By the way, Paul Craig, former light heavyweight, bro, Rene de Ridder is the same size, if not bigger. Like, big, strong. If you give me those two guys in a grappling match, you give me those two guys in a UFC fight, give me Rene de Ridder. Not close, in my view. I think he wipes him. So, okay, they go out there, they have this fight. By the way, I don't think Rene's afraid to grapple with Paul at all. I think he would take him down, pass his guard, and beat the shit out of him. That's truthfully how I see it. So then I have to ask myself this question. If Bo decides, based on the feedback he got in his last fight, to wrestle and grapple in this one, I think things will go really poorly for him. I think he could get to the top position. I don't think he's going to make horrible decisions. I've seen him grapple with black belts. He's not bad. By no means, right? Like, he's world-class at wrestling. He's not bad at jiu-jitsu. I think, truthfully, like, based on the knowns, Rene de Ridder is a better jiu-jitsu player, and it's not close. Like, when you look at his credentials in jiu-jitsu, I've watched him fucking pass the guard of Andre Galvao. Kevin Holland, people can make a lot of like things about, hey, he's not that good at grappling and this and that. He's hard for good guys to submit, right? Like, even good guys, they can get good positions. It's hard to submit. Bro, Derek Brunson had him for like 4 minutes and a head and arm choke. He's just like sitting there laughing. Like, if you don't have the technique right, if you don't have everything squared away, he's not giving it to you for free, right? You look back at that fight, and honestly, the thing that stood out to me was not that Kevin ended up getting tapped or getting out grappled. Rene is huge, like, no doubt about it. He's a massive man, even bigger than a lot of the guys that have out grappled Kevin at middleweight. But he got his ass beat. It's not a long fight, dude. Rene de Ridder beat the shit out of him. Like, on top, elbows to the body, elbows to the head. Kevin's bleeding. Doesn't bleed in a lot of his fights. Kevin's bleeding. He's getting his ribs beat up with elbows. Not just like, hey, like, I'm in top, like, camping. He's like, boom, boom, boom. And he's not afraid to open things up and try and pass the guard and go back in for another takedown. And those things, that pressure is how he gets his passes. It's how he gets to good position. It's how he finishes guys. And the thing that did stand out to me about that Gerald Meerschaert fight, how many times have we seen Gerald Meerschaert in round 3 snatching away somebody's neck. As they get tired, as they run out of steam and energy, they can keep up with the pace that they set, and Gerald beats him. And dude, Gerald literally was ready to fall over from exhaustion. He also got knocked the fuck out at the end of round 1 and then woke back up. They like got him up and he came out for round 2. He's doing his thing. Dude, De Ridder has no striking defense. So could he get knocked out? Yes. But will he make it a fight? I believe the answer is yes. And I think that's why this line is so much different than these other Bo Nickel lines. Like these other guys didn't believe they could win. They didn't think there was like a clear path for them anywhere. They're going out there to get taken down, try and fight hands and like, oh, maybe that you're not going to win like that, right? It starts with belief. I think Rene De Ridder believes he can out-grapple this guy, period. Like, this guy believes he can out-grapple anybody, and he's fucking past the guard of Galvao. I'm not going to be the one to tell him otherwise, right? Like, grappling for grappling, I think Rene De Ridder's a better grappler. Wrestling is going to be hard to get this guy down. So how do you get him down? I think there's 2 ways, which is 1, how do you get a wrestler to shoot? Put him under pressure. See, one way that you can force a shot out of a wrestler, right? They start getting backed up. They're getting pressured a little too much. You can get a forced reaction from somebody. They fire off a takedown, maybe that they regret, but they fire it off. Ben Askren, if he could have that one back over again to do against Masvidal, probably not going to take that shot right off the rip, right? But he got pressure right away. Pressure brings out your natural reactions. Your natural reaction if you're a wrestler is to shoot. Let me just get a hold of this guy. Let me grab him. You start grabbing Rene De Ridder, he's going to try and trip your feet out. He's going to try and pull you on top. He is not afraid to be on the bottom position either. Very aggressive guard. You know who didn't want to play on the ground in that Gerald Meerschaert fight? Gerald. Gerald, at one point in the first round, gets a position where he can come up on top, and he steps away from the guy because he realized this guy will beat me on the ground. If I play with him on the ground right now when we're both fresh, he will beat me. So he stood back up, and he got dropped on the feet as a result. Rene De Ridder, in my view, has skills in all positions. Anatoly Malikin is fucking massive. He's huge. He's strong as shit. And there was nothing that Rene could do physically to get a hold of him. Bo isn't that big. You just look at some of these fights. He's not that big at 185. He just isn't. He's not small. I'm not saying he's a small man. He's strong physically. He's a great athlete. He's a better athlete than RDR. But RDR is fucking huge. He knows how to wrestle. He knows how to grapple. It's not going to be easy work for Bo in those phases. And when you ask me, who is the better striker? Bo is a little bit cleaner. He's got a little bit better defense. He's got a little bit more power. That's honestly how I see it. I think Rene De Ridder is a guy that can compete on the feet. He can kick. He can punch. Paul Craig can't punch. That's already a step in the right direction. So I just think that this is a fight where Rene De Ridder over 3-1 is the pick to click for me in this fight. I'm going to wait and see how much Bo Nickel money comes in. I respect Bo, but I've said since that Paul Craig fight, I thought it was delusion. His opinion of the fight after the fact. I thought that the comments he was making on the Zack Ryder podcast, I said, this guy will get his just desserts. He will get a slice of humble pie for talking crazy and reckless. And I think that he believes in his own height. I think that he is a guy that is skilled, right? I think eventually he will be at the title level. But a lot of these prospect guys have to take that slice of humble pie. Think about Jamal Hill, Paul Craig. Perfect example, right? If they were to do it over again, I think a lot of people would have a different opinion of how to go. But he got a little overconfident. He went on the ground with a guy who's very dangerous, and then he got his arm popped out. And I can tell you guys, I respect RDR's grappling, period, against anybody in the UFC, basically. I think that's how good he is on the ground. And so I don't think this is an easy fight for Bo. And I think the line makes it look like it is. So let's see how it goes, man. Fascinating fight, right? The younger guy, I think Bo Nickel, if I was to say zone in on a method for him, the KO is 2-1. I think that's probably his most likely path. I know a lot of people like the decision. I think if it's a decision, it's more competitive, right? Again, that Paul Craig fight, nobody believed in Paul's offense, including Paul. So, Bo gets the decision there, unanimous. But I'll just tell you what, man, if you told me this fight goes 15 minutes, I think it's going to be closer than that line entails. That's my God's honest truth opinion. So there it is. Capping Service says, listening to you break down something else. Love the passion, brother. Appreciate you, my man. I always say all I can do is try and give you my truthful opinion. I'll be wrong a million times on this show. I've been wrong a million times, but I also I believe in telling you guys what I truly feel. And I respect Bo Nickel back in the day when a lot of people were saying, why is this guy minus 3,000? I was like, just bet the unders, guys. It's going to be a wrap. Like, Zachary Borrego shouldn't be here. No disrespect. But, like, those are the kind of fights where Bo Nickel was in those spots for a reason. He deserved that. But that last fight, I feel, took a lot of the wind out of his sails promotionally as well. He can go get it back by starching this guy, by proving he is who he says he is. He hasn't done that for me yet. That fucking finish against Jamie Pickett, bro, that shit is not even good jiu-jitsu. Rene DeRitter ain't fucking tapping to that. I'll tell you that 1,000%. 1,000% he's not tapping to that, okay? The finish against Cody Brundage, not a very standout performance. Right? He gave himself 2 thumbs down for that one, right? And then against Paul Craig, where he lands 7 more shots and, 4 of them more were to the head. It's like, oh, no, he's the second. I don't buy it yet. I'm happy to say he's the better prospect, right? He's younger. You can buy more stock in this guy. Long-term is going to pay you off more. I think the fight is on Saturday, right? And I think Rene DeRitter right now is an experienced guy. He's got 21 professional MMA fights. He's got a bounty of experience in grappling. And by the way, I always say this, how many guys from the UFC could go compete in professional grappling and look competent? Many of them can't, right? Many of them can't even look competent against other MMA fighters. Pat Sabatini submitting Nico Price with a fucking Suloev stretch in like a minute and a half, right? Rene DeRitter is against fucking Andre Galvao, a legend of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Make no mistake, legend. He's passing his guard as he starts to get fatigued at like the 8-minute mark of a match that they're having. Like, yo, if Bo Nickel starts to get tired and he's underneath, shit's going to get dicey fast. That's the way I see it, man. So I think RDR's a live underdog. Any thoughts with? I didn't mean to go on a rant, but brother, I had a lot on my heart there.
That's fair. And, there are a ton of people that will reference that Galvao, the point about Galvao, DeRitter passing his guard, and it's a pretty big deal. The one point of pushback that I will give on that point is I trust wrestling scrambles more than jiu-jitsu scrambles. Let's just put it that way. When it comes to just scrambling out of a position and ending up in neutral, I will always give the advantage to wrestlers, but that's just me.
I would say I agree with you entirely, but there's one slight disagreement, which is just this. There are times where the problem with wrestling as it relates to MMA is that wrestling is a sprint. And like you can do it for 6-7 minutes, right? Like I wrestle, right? Like you can do it for 6-7 minutes. It's a sprint. Every part of your body's going. You're squeezing, you're gripping, you're trying to hold another man down, control them. It's exhausting, right? Jiu-jitsu, one of the things about their scrambling style is it's a little bit more relaxed. So sometimes guys are able to maintain it for longer. They can keep it going. They can just be a little bit more clever and a little bit more savvy as opposed to rushing through the positions and being more assertive and dominant. Sometimes that gasses people out in those scrambles. So that's the question I have. It's like, Bo Nickel should be able to do it. But has he been tested there? No. Everything's been easy. Everything's been smooth sailing. And I think that this is the point where he's going to meet resistance. Rene DeRitter comes forward, attempts offense, looks to wrestle, looks to grapple, looks to grab a hold of you. Unless he gets sparked out on the first punch, I think it's going to be him trying to make this a fight. And then we'll see where Bo Nickel really is at. Because I don't think a lot of these guys have even wanted to fight him. They're like, yeah, I'll take the paycheck. I'll show up to this job. But they don't believe in themselves to try and compete. And I think the opposite is true of Rene DeRitter. Maybe it's delusional self-confidence. This guy wants this fight. So,
yeah, the one thing that I'll say about this matchup is if you're ever looking to buy low on an opponent of Bo Nickel, and I say buy low very sparingly because obviously DeRitter is on a 2-fight win streak, but if you're ever looking to fade Bo Nickel, I mean, this would be the theoretical spot on his run up to the top because I think as we start to see him climb the rankings, these odds are going to start shrinking and shrinking closer towards even. So this would be the fade spot per se on Bo Nickel. Now, am I taking it? No. But
the other thing to mention, this guy's calling out Chimaev. He's saying like I would wash Chimaev. He could not keep up with me in the wrestling and all this stuff. And I'm just like, he's writing a lot of checks right now with that mouth, right? If his ass can cash him, all I'll do is clap, right? Penn State, they do special things over there. Special program. It's a proven spot for me, dog. Oh, that being said, my man, let's do it. Main event of the evening. We saved one of the best for last. Cory Sandman Sandhagen looking to reassert himself as a top bantamweight contender. Frankly, went out there, had a good fight with Umar Nurmagomedov, a preview of what was there to be done by our guy, Merab Dvalishvili, plus 245, cash it. But in any case, man, Deiveson Figueiredo, the god of war, he's a massive underdog in this spot. Wiz, do you agree with the line? Or do you think that there's one more left in the tank for the god of war?
Yeah, before we get into the breakdown, I would like to, shout out the show. Shout out to you, Liam. Shout out to the chat for being so interactive today and just being lively. I know right now it's 11:30, 11:25 where I'm at here on the West Coast, but for all of y'all on the East Coast, I know you guys are sleepy, you included, Liam, but thanks for hanging in there with us. We do this for you guys at the end of the day and just so we can share our opinions. So thanks for hanging along. Second thing that I will bring up, these two fighters in their last 5 fights have had 3 common opponents. Marlon Vera, Peter Yan, and Rob Font. And if I remember correctly, I think all of those fights have went the same exact way. Both of them have lost to Peter Yan. Both beat Rob Font, and then both beat Marlon Vera. Now, in different fashions, of course. Obviously, Deiveson fought them a little bit, I would say more recently, just due to his move up to the bantamweight division from flyweight. And when we look at that move up, the first fight, we saw a lot of steam on Rob Font, people trying to fade Deiveson, saying that he might be a little bit too small for the weight class. Maybe he won't be able to take the punishment from Font. And he went up against someone in Font who we've all known to be somewhat chinny and lacking in terms of the durability. And Figueiredo stepped up to the plate and really put it on him. And then you look at the fight against Cody Garbrandt, someone who also has never really shown the best durability, especially in recent history. Went out there and submitted him. Thirdly, against Marlon Vera, it was predominantly just, I would say, a one-sided striking affair in terms of Deiveson really powering it up there and putting it on Marlon Vera, who has always been known to be a really tough fighter who will give you some honest work over 3 rounds due to his durability, but always just tends to get hit. And last but not least, Peter Yan just gave him, in my opinion, a tour of the octagon. Deiveson had his moments here and there, but really Peter Yan went in there and lit him up. Now, on the Sandhagen side, his last fight was a loss against Umar Nurmagomedov. No shame there at all, 8 months ago. So we haven't seen him since. Rob Font, great decision win there. Obviously, was a little bit more on the boring side just because Rob Font was really locking him down, if I remember him correctly, from this was not half guard. He was really using the rubber guard on him, if I remember correctly. And then he went to split against Marlon Vera. That was not a split. So I don't know.
Ridiculous.
I don't know what the judges were looking at there. So that was a unanimous decision if I've ever seen one in my life. Now, when it comes to the matchup itself, we have someone who's going to be 6 inches taller in Cory Sandhagen, but only 2 inches in terms of reach advantage. And we already know that Cory Sandhagen's cardio is elite. Whereas Deiveson, we do tend to see him slow down a little bit in his fights. I think what this fight is going to end up being, and it really is only one way playing out in my mind, I think this fight is just going to be a 25-minute poke fest from Cory Sandhagen. I think he's just going to outpoint him on the outside of his striking range, whether he's pressuring or whether he's being pressured. And he's going to play El Matador against Figueiredo. He's going to hold up the red cape, touch him once, Toro, on to the next. I really think that Cory Sandhagen is just going to be able to out-jab and outland Figueiredo here at distance and frustrate him at points, which could leave Figueiredo a little bit vulnerable if he does start to get a little frustrated and, wing heavies. Because Cory Sandhagen, let's not forget, has some excellent timing. I mean, his flying knee knockout, the name is slipping my brain, but that knockout in terms of time against Frankie, there it is. second to none. You don't really see many of those in the UFC. So maybe he can land something like that against Deiveson, but I really just think this is a Cory decision spot through and through. And I agree with the line. A lot of people are going to respect the legend in Deiveson, and I do too, but I just don't think this is the matchup for him. I think Cory Sandhagen is going to be on his way up to the top again, and potentially find himself in a position where he can fight for an interim spot.
I think that for me, man, the way I look at this is I think people are being a little bit deceived onto the Deiveson Figueiredo side here because of the fight with Petr Yan. And I think that the guy, Petr Yan, that showed up to fight Figgy is still a very, very good fighter. But truthfully, I think that the version that fought Cory was like peak of his powers, right? Like confidence is there. He's got the title belt. And I feel like that guy was just dialed in that night, and Cory just had nothing for him. I feel like Cory continues to improve and get better over the course of his fights. I mean, frankly, that fight with Umar, if you had said before the fight, like Umar is not going to get more than 5 minutes of control, I think people would have been extremely bullish on the Cory Sandhagen side. And, it ended up being Umar just outworked him slightly with the volume, right? Like that's what it really came down to in that fight. It was very close. Meanwhile, Deiveson Figueiredo, I thought he was hurt badly against Jan a couple times. I think if you had to criticize Petr Yan, his finishing instincts aren't there, right? In the UFC, it normally takes him a considerable amount of damage and like a huge skill gap with his opponents to get them out of there, traditionally speaking. And I think that when you look at Cory Sandhagen, the finishing instincts haven't always been there for Cory either, but the fight that he had with Rob Font, like by comparison, right, absolutely dominated it. Every minute of the fight essentially was him on top with a torn bicep, right? So like he did anything he wanted to Rob Font, kind of in a diminished state. And the fight with Chito Vera, I think is another good example where it's like, yeah, it goes down on the record as a split decision. We all watched the fight. Cory beat the shit out of that guy. It wasn't really competitive, honestly. And what Cory talked about in that fight was he was like, yeah, there's a point where wanting it doesn't really mean anything, right? And it's like, we both really want it. I'm just better at fighting than he is. And I feel like when you look at Cory, he's a guy that's very self-aware, right? He's constantly working on his skills. He's constantly trying to improve. And I think coming into this one, he understands his marketing appeal is what is going to continue to hold him back in the UFC. So he's hired a publicist. He's got a main event opportunity against a 37-year-old former champion from a weight class down who hasn't gotten more than 4 minutes of control time in a UFC fight since 2018. So do I expect Figueiredo to just wrestle Cory into the ground? No. And so I think that this is going to be a striking fight. And frankly, in a striking fight, I think Deiveson is far too slow to deal with somebody like Cory. You mentioned the footwork. I think that the footwork's a big piece of it. I think the hand speed is going to be vastly superior for Cory at this stage of the game. I think the diversity of the offense. I think Figueiredo's a big puncher. I think he's kind of been figured out as a big puncher, though, right? Like, I think people know that if you stand in front of this guy, he's going to hit you really hard. If you move, cut angles, move laterally, you can make him miss. You can make him work a little more than he's comfortable with. And frankly, if I see wrestling, grappling upside going one way or the other here, I kind of think it's Cory that's going to be getting on top. I think he's the bigger guy at this weight class. I think he's more physically imposing. I think he's going to be more assertive and more aggressive in the grappling. And I just think that the cardio could be a huge issue for Figueiredo because Sandhagen pushes a pretty decent pace, unlike a lot of these other guys that he's been fighting. And, the Jan fight, again, like I thought it really was like a testament to his toughness and his character that he made it out the other side of that one. But I thought he took a big licking in that one, and it kind of told him where his time is, right? I had said 2 years ago in my bantamweight title preview for the year, I thought Merab Dvalishvili was most likely to end the year as champion, right? I thought Sean O'Malley was second, but I had put in my list of like dark horse contenders, Deiveson, Deiveson, Figueiredo. And it's because I was like, he's got a couple wins. He's a former champion. They're going to give him some winnable fights and see where he's at this weight class. And I think they got their answer in the Petr Yan fight. And now they're giving him a guy that, in my opinion, they would like to see go out there, get a huge win so they can market him into a big fight. And I don't think they feel the same way about Deiveson at 37 years of age, truthfully. So let's see how it plays out. I think I'm not getting to a minus 450 Cory Sandhagen. Like, that's certainly not something you'll see me clicking. But I will say when Cory Sandhagen fought Song Yadong, who's extremely durable over 5 rounds, I took the KO there at like plus 440, and it's because I was like, he's got a long time to work. He does elbows, knees. They try and cut you, try and beat you up, and like he'll do damage over the course of 5 rounds. And it's been a couple fights where he didn't get the stoppage. I feel like people are maybe now acting like Cory's not a dangerous fighter, and he shattered Marlon Moraes' orbital early in that fight. He brutally knocked out Frankie Edgar. He's landed over 100 significant strikes, more than a couple times in the UFC, cuts people up, busts them up. Umar wasn't loving some of those striking exchanges with Cory either. Like, I just don't think Cory's getting the respect he deserves as a finisher lately because he hasn't been producing. So I think this is an opportunity for him to go out there and show that he's still a violent, dangerous guy, capable of finishing guys at this level. And, basically since that fight with Aljamain Sterling where he came out super flat and just got his back taken and instantly choked unconscious, I feel like he's been a lot more dialed to start his fights. And again, if that's the case, if he's dialed here from minute 1 to minute 25, I think he's going to beat the shit out of him, honestly. So I think the line is probably going to end up looking justified. But I respect Figgy. I think he's a great fighter. I just think he had a time and he had a weight class. And at 125, this guy was big, strong, scary, hits like a fucking truck. His jiu-jitsu's very, very good. But I think at this weight class, the jiu-jitsu is going to be harder to pull off. Like, you could do it to a Garbrandt who's also a flyweight by proxy, right? But can you do it to a guy like Cory who's big and hard to out-grapple? I don't think you can. So give me Cory Sandhagen to get the win here. And I think he's going to knock him out. I think it's going to be the flying knee. I tweeted that out earlier this week. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the spinning kick. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the Song Yadong elbow cut stoppage. I just think Cory's the more dangerous guy. So give me Cory Sandhagen via finish. And that's it. Shout out to the chat. We got the sharpest guys in the game, in the building. Our guy Capping Service, very sharp guy. Our guy JB, off the show right now, but I'm sure he's listening and he'll have some stuff in chat later. And also, guys, we had freaking Pierce. We've had Glenbot, Tron. I'm going through Bruh Moment, Tristan, Bloomdog, Reed Matthews, AWMD, all you guys, thank you so much for being here. Sharpest chat in the game. We could not do it without you guys each and every week, but also I couldn't do it without my great guests, guys. Wizz MMA, back feeling better on a win streak. Lord willing, we keep it going one more time, this time in Des Moines, Iowa. Wizz, anything you got to get off your chest, anything you want the people to know, let them know where they can find you, brother.
Yeah, at Wizz MMA on Twitter, on YouTube, on Bet MMA Tips. If you guys want my picks, everything's on there. It's like $15 per event. So I think people have made more than $15 per event the last 6 weeks. So we're looking to make it 7 events in a row. We have a pretty big bet on the PFL card tomorrow. So looking forward to that. And then looking forward to UFC this weekend. But more importantly, glad to be back here after what was supposed to be a 1-week hiatus, but a 2-week hiatus because of the sickness. Feeling a lot better and just going to continue powering through it, man. Thank you, Liam, for having me as always. And I'll try to be on here every single week to give you guys accurate info, sharp info, and stuff that I've seen just training with some of the pros that fight week in and week out. So that's what I owe to you guys. But thanks again for watching, and thanks for being interactive in the chat. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, my man. Thank you to Wizz for being here. Always sharp information and always a great conversation. So I hope that you guys enjoy. Make sure that you give him a follow at Wizz MMA if you're looking for any of his information, or if you're looking for information from your boy. That's all down in the description box down below. So thank you guys very much for being here. Thank you to everybody for the kind words. If you guys have any more thoughts that you want to get off your chest, any action, any questions, fire them off in the comment section. I'm very responsive in there. I try my very best to get back to everybody before fight time if I can. If not, I circle back around on Sundays typically and try and answer as well. So if you got questions, comments, concerns, hit us up down below. In the meantime, God bless, good luck, enjoy those fights, and come back next time. We're having all the same fun again. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and come back next time. Thanks, guys. See ya.